Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has fox ears and 9 tails high school DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by itzgatt, and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Gremory leaned back into her chair after having finished her paperwork for the day. Her eyes moved to the right of her desk, tapping the screen of her phone to see what time it was. I should be heading home now. The devil decided, seeing it was 8 p.m. She stood up from her desk, sliding her chair back forward before she made her way to the exit. She stopped some seconds later near her couches when something felt off. Her eyes scanned the room for anything but couldn't find anything. She nearly dropped the matter but was surprised when her entire body was engulfed by a golden light. Panic quickly set in before she had to close her eyes to shield them from the brightness. Rias. The voice of her best friend and queen prompted her to her eyes again, the orbs now looking at her queen, Akino, and her rook, Kaneko. Akino, Rias, she said, her voice laced with confusion but also happiness at seeing them. The three girls could already see that all three of them were on the same boat, confusion amongst a multitude of other emotions visible in their eyes. I assume you two also got here because of that light? She asked, though she already suspected the answer was yes, she still wanted to confirm it. Kaneko just nodded her head while Akino voiced out, yes, I was about to visit you but on the way, that light brought me here. Ria's eyes narrowed slightly in suspicion. That was exactly what had happened to her. Do you think we were brought here by orders from your brother? Akino theorized. Rias shook her head. No, he would have told me. She slowed down, and trailed off at the end, her tone turning unsure of her statement. Now that she thought about it more, her brother would also try to surprise her by not telling her any about this. She groaned in annoyance, hoping her brother wasn't behind any of this. They continued discussing amongst each other for a minute as to what could have happened to bring them here without them being able to stop it or do anything against it. Yo! The three girls all came to a stop once they heard the unfamiliar voice calling out to them. Their heads turned to the direction the voice came from to see a spiky blonde-haired person waving at them. He seemed to be at the same age as Akino and Rias. Kaneko's eyes were fixed on the blonde. The amount of chakra she sensed from the blonde was insane. She had never seen a person like him before with chakra such as his, though unlike the others she could that it also felt very peaceful, comforting, and inviting. Her mouth opened up in slight shock from all of that. Likewise, Akino and Rias both were on guard. While they couldn't really sense his chakra, they could still feel that the person in front of them was very powerful by the energy they sensed from him. Is he the one who brought us here? Both Akino and Rias thought at the same time in suspicion. Rias snuck a glance at her rook, and was surprised to see her completely frozen at the sight of the blonde. One of her eyebrows raised at that. What's wrong with her? Naruto, sensing their emotions and seeing how they were on edge, raised up his hands in a placating manner. Don't worry. I'm not a villain or anything, he said with an easygoing grin. The devils could they he was telling the truth by his genuine tone. I came here some seconds ago and watched you three appear here through a flash of light. All three devils slowly started dropping their wary guard as they recognized that he truly didn't have any bad intentions. I got here the same way. Naruto frowned. I don't know how or why this happened, so I hope you guys have some answers. Rias stepped forward, shaking her head. No, we don't. She answered with a small frown. Naruto pouted slightly but turned to the smallest of the group, giving her a curious stare. Is she from the elemental nations? He could sense chakra from her but it felt a bit different than the chakra of his home before his mind realized it. Senjutsu. Kurama came to the same realization as his friend. Before any of them could continue, the sound of beeping caught their attention as their heads scanned the room for a quick second. I apologize for bringing you all here without notifying you beforehand, a voice suddenly started. At the same time, another golden light went off in the room as Naruto and the others thought someone else was going to appear, but they were perplexed when a simple book appeared in the middle. You all have been brought here in order to read about another universe. Another universe? The devils and Naruto all thought in interest. Before they could think about it more, the voice continued speaking. The story focuses on Naruto amongst you. You will all see what it's about. I shall not take more of your time and do not worry about anything happening in your world in your absence. Everything has been taken care of. The voice said no more as it disappeared and they were left wondering what exactly it meant. They were all left standing in their spot, all of them having their own thoughts about their current situation before Naruto made the first move as he made his way to the book, resting on the table. The devils were surprised by the sudden addition of couches next to where the book had appeared. Before picking up the book, Naruto turned around, facing the three devils. So, I don't really know what's going but I think we should just listen to whoever that was and read this, he said, holding up the book in his hand. Rias stepped forward once again. I agree. She understood that there was no other choice. She couldn't seem to teleport away as she already tried but couldn't do so, which meant they had no other choice but to do so as they were wold. We better introduce ourselves. My name is Rias Gremory. Rias Gremory, Naruto repeated in his mind. It was a name foreign for sure. Rias pointed over to her left. This is Akino and that is Kaneko. Akino proceeded to give him a friendly smile while Kaneko only stared blankly at him. Naruto gave them a big grin. Like the voice already told you all, the name's Naruto. He introduced himself as he plopped down on the nearest couch as the devils followed his example and sat down too. He could see Kaneko still staring at him as he tilted his head at her. Is there something on me? You've been staring at me since you've got here," he asked curiously. Rias and Akino also looked over to the rook as she seemed to be deep in thought, looking as if she was debating with herself on something. "You have chakra," Kaneko finally responded. "A lot of it," she added. Naruto blinked at the response. He didn't really understand what she was getting at with that. "Well, yeah. You have it too, but it feels different than mine." Kaneko's eyes slightly widened once she heard that. "He can sense it?" The rook thought to herself in surprise, not having expected him to be able to sense her chakra. She had never used it after all. Rias and Akino stared at their friend in concern as they knew her past regarding chakra and senjutsu. "Is that a bad thing?" Naruto asked slowly, not seeing why she stated that. "What are you?" Kaneko asked him. She was confused by him as she hadn't ever before felt chakra like his before. "Huh?" Naruto was not sure what she meant by that. Akino giggled. "She's asking if you are a yokai or not," the black-haired girl asked in her friend's stead. "A yokai?" Naruto repeated with a raised brow. "No, I'm just a human." "Why would you think I'm a yokai?" the blonde questioned them. Ria sighed as she proceeded to take over and explain to the blonde what they were and gave a simple summary, showing Kaneko as an example. A minute later, Naruto sat there on the couch, processing all the new information he had gotten. Devils, angels, fallen angels, and yokai exist in their world, with the latter one having chakra. I'm not from your world," he started off as they all nodded. They had figured that out already. "As I said, I'm just a human, and back in my world we all have chakra, but Kaneko's feels a bit different," he explained, rubbing his chin in thought. "All will be revealed as you read the book." The voice chimed in as they all looked up again, but the voice did not continue as they expected it to. Naruto shrugged as the devils gave him a nod too. His head looked down at the book in his hand. "Kitsune Rook," he read aloud as Rias, Kaneko and Akino perked up at the title. "Rook," Kaneko murmured. For a second, she thought the book was about her, but the Kitsune part of the title had her discard that thought instantly. "Do you mind if I read it?" Akino asked Naruto. She was curious about the book, now knowing that it most probably took place in their universe. "Oh yeah? Sure," Naruto replied, handing over the book to her as she took it from him with a smile. She saw that everyone was left looking at her expectantly as she opened the book and started reading. Arc Initiation. Chapter 1, A New Path. "Kakashi, sensei," Naruto murmured to himself, but the others caught what he had said. "He's your teacher?" Rias asked the blonde, looking at the silver-haired male. "He is, but I didn't think it would be in my world, or another version of my world, I guess." The blonde hummed in slight surprise. The top jonin of Konoha's shinobi corps had never been more guilt-stricken than he was at that moment. To him that was to be considered a lofty achievement. If the silver-haired man were to be honest with himself, he couldn't help but feel his whole life was marked with milestones, made from the graves of all those he loved. If he allowed his mind time to wander, it almost always dwelled on that fact. Dwelled on what he saw as a legacy of nothing but failure time and again. Slowly a frown made its way to Naruto's face after Akino read the paragraph about his teacher. Naruto knew that Kakashi had a difficult life growing up, something they both had in common, but he didn't know that the jonin felt like this even after years. The other three occupants in the room were a bit confused at the start of the story, not having expected it to start off with a person having thoughts like these. Depressing start, Akino thought to herself before she continued reading. As it was, he felt more guilt-stricken with his most recent of milestones. He had once again failed Naruto. Over the last 12 years it seemed that was a recurring phrase in his mind. Sure, he could go on and place all his shortcomings toward the boy prior to this one at the feet of the Elder Council, or more specifically Danzo. He understood the elders and Danzo held no hatred for Naruto. In their own idiotic way they each thought they were protecting the boy and Konoha both by how they handled the political nightmare that could have been the both boys' heritage, and status being publicly known. Heritage. Rias pondered for a second before her eyes turned to stare at Naruto curiously. "Is your heritage forbidden from being known?" Naruto paused for a second, unsure of his answer. "I guess at the time Old Man Third thought it would be better to hide the fact that I was the Hokage's son." "Foolish." Kurama scoffed inside his mindscape, but Naruto ignored his tailed beast friend for the moment. "But why?" Naruto turned to look at the small girl that had asked the question. He offered a shrug in return. "I'm not sure. I never really thought about asking him when I got the chance." "Well, it must have been something crucial if they had to keep a secret from everyone else," Ria surmised with a nod to herself as Akino continued reading. Throughout Naruto's short life, Kakashi had been forbidden from adopting him as an infant, forbidden from acting as his caretaker, forbidden from adopting him once again when he was removed from the abusive environment of the orphanage, forbidden from pledging himself and thereby the few remaining assets of the all but extinct Hatake clan to the Uzumaki clan, which the civilian council also seemed to be trying to sweep under the rug, enraging the former ANBU captain even more. Despite all that though, all those failures, Kakashi had believed in the reassurance of Lord Third. The old Sarutobi had repeatedly consoled Kakashi when he was on the verge of snapping and telling how in the end it would all work out. Akino inwardly sighed reading the parts about the abusive environment of the orphanage and getting removed from it. She couldn't help but be reminded of her childhood years after losing her mother and being forced to live with the Himejima family. It was not a pleasant time for her for sure. She sent the blonde an understanding look. Kaneko had a frown on her usual passive face. They abused you in the orphanage and kicked you out? The devils were glad to see him shake his head negatively. I wasn't abused or anything. They all just. He paused for a second to think on his words before continuing. Just ignored my existence until old man Third gave me an apartment of my own when I turned 5. He said nonchalantly at the end, much to the devil's surprise. 5? Ria squawked out in surprise. How could a mere 5-year-old take care of himself, all by himself? It made no sense to her. She shuddered to think what could have become of her if she had been in the same circumstances as the blonde in front of her. Naruto didn't think too much of it but had a confused expression on his face as he thought back to another part of what was read aloud. Civilian Council? That was something he never had heard. It could simply be something of that universe. Not every world is the same. Kurama's words were true. Naruto understood that quickly as he put aside those thoughts and focused on some others. Mainly the fact that Kakashi had tried adopting him but was denied by Hiruzen, which irked him a lot. He idly wondered if the same had happened in his world. Sarutobi had proven himself to a degree. He made sure that Kakashi was the head of Naruto's security detail when not absolutely required for out-of-village missions with his team. He had allowed him to leave gifts and help him whenever he could get away with it. It felt good too when Naruto had briefly mentioned in an idle conversation about one ANBU he liked above the rest who seemed to go the extra yard, while Sasuke and Sakura had been more interested in why Naruto seemed to have his own ANBU guard detail like Sasuke had at that age. Kakashi had basked in the warmth of knowing his small gifts had helped the boy he saw as his little brother. Naruto smiled widely as those memories resurfaced. His childhood was full of harsh moments, but in between those harsh ones lay the ones such as these the book mentioned. I never really realized it was sensei, didn't I? He understood it was stupid of him not to but chalked it up to him forgetting about it since it stopped at a young age. At least he tried to help somewhat. Ah, that is so sweet. Akino gushed at the sweet gestures of the silver-haired man. Ria smiled alongside her best friend. Yes, it is quite a nice deed. The old Hokage had also ensured Naruto was placed on his team despite the elder's argument that too many VIPs were placed together. Kakashi had hoped that he could finally truly bond with Naruto then, until Danzo personally met with him. What annoyed him the most was that in the end he had been persuaded by Danzo's argument. Sasuke was more of a flight risk, so therefore needed to be Kakashi's main focus. He was to make him love Konoha, shower the brat with as much support and training as possible. Who gave a damn if the little traitor in the making had earned it? Kakashi was to teach him even his own signature jutsu to give him a leg up in the exams. The devils were confused. Wait, I forgot to ask this, but what exactly is Hokage and who is this Danzo person? Naruto easily picked up on the confusion and curiosity laced in their tone. He hesitated briefly before replying. I guess it wouldn't hurt telling you guys about my world if it's gonna show it to you anyway. He couldn't detect any ill intent from them either, so it wasn't anything bad. The Hokage is just the leader, and as for Danzo, I actually don't really know much about him right now. He admitted sheepishly. All I know is that he was one of the higher-ups in our village and became Hokage briefly, but that's it. He's dead anyway, so I didn't care about him at all. Akino pursed her lips. But if this Danzo person isn't the Hokage, how is he able to command your teacher? She asked. That's a good question. Naruto thought to himself. I don't know, he replied, much to their confusion. He shouldn't be able to. I don't know why old man Third let him do all this, he said, shrugging at the end. I gotta ask Kakashi if he was told to do the same in our world and focus on Sasuke first. Naruto told himself. He still remembered when the silver-haired man had decided to train his rival alone for the exams instead of both of them. He felt betrayed at the time but guessed it was because of Danzo now. That reminded him of another of his worst moments. That betrayed and pained look in Naruto's bright blue eyes when he had asked for training for the upcoming exam finals and Kakashi had seemingly brushed him off to train Sasuke instead. That look as those sky blues darkened with surprisingly well-hidden emotion was nearly enough for him to grab a charge of insubordination and refuse the council and Lord Third's orders. Afterward he immediately went to the Third and all but begged him to help him find a solution. Again the old monkey came through by telling him about Jiraiya's presence at the hot springs. All it took was slipping that moron Ebisu the suggestion of training water walking at the hot springs, and he just let Naruto's weirdly chivalrous personality lead him into confronting Jiraiya for peeping on the women there. Kid did not like perverts, it seemed. Jiraiya? As soon as those words had left the crimson-haired devil's mouth, a projection of the person appeared in front of them, showing the toad Sannin as Naruto grinned at it. Yep, another one of my teachers. Peeping on the women at the hot springs, Kaneko muttered in a dark tone, her eyes glaring at the white-haired man's hologram. Akino giggled to herself. Era, calm down, Kaneko-chan. He got his punishment for doing all of that. Having read ahead a bit, the half-devil, half-fallen angel knew what had happened. The white-haired devil still huffed in annoyance, turning her gaze away from what she deemed trash. Naruto winced. Yeah, he got beat up a lot for doing that. The blonde couldn't say his teacher didn't deserve what he got, being honest. In Kakashi's humble opinion, Jiraiya deserved every bit of the beating he got from those women, Naruto alerted. Kakashi might respect Jiraiya for some things, but he would never forget how he all but abandoned Naruto to go gallivanting around the elemental nations rather than watching over the boy. The memories of seeing a sad and lonely Naruto fighting back tears in a cold and lonely apartment, or having to jump in to save him from yet another beating from bigoted villagers, had long burned the bridge of Kakashi ever liking Jiraiya as more than a strong shinobi and decent author. Though perhaps part of that anger stemmed from Kakashi himself having no legal right to step in as Naruto's guardian. If he had been less of a fool as a child and not refused Minato-sensei's offer of adoption out of pride, he would have legally been Naruto's older brother and could have actually stepped in. Didn't know Mom and Dad offered Kakashi-sensei that, Naruto muttered to himself. See, Akino told Kaneko, who still felt that wasn't enough. Rias, though, was focused on something else as she frowned. They tried to beat you too? She asked. While they already knew the Naruto in front of them didn't exactly have the same childhood as the one in the book, there were still a lot of similarities. No. The Jinchuriki answered with a shake of his head. They never tried anything like that. It was they either ignored me or just told me to go away. That's cruel for a child so young, Akino muttered sadly, being reminded of her own time with her family. Rias' hand settled on her shoulder in support as the others were curiously looking at them. Rias knew about her friend's childhood, and the slight similarities between the blonde and her most likely resurfaced those memories she didn't want to be reminded of. Now though, it was far too late to make up for those old failures. The last moments of seeing Naruto would forever be carved into his mind's eye thanks to the Sharingan. He could see him as if he was still in front of him. The pale, bloody, and limp body that was Naruto Uzumaki, his student in charge, his brother in all but blood, being lifted up by a masked stranger dressed clearly as a member of the Akatsuki. Wait, what? Naruto immediately asked, interrupting Akino as she read the last line. Pale, blood, and limp body? Akino slowly repeated as it dawned on them. Your other version is dead in the story? Masked stranger, Naruto murmured as he was still surprised that his counterpart had apparently died. Then Obito managed to. Obito? Kaneko obviously asked him to elaborate, but the blonde seemed to be having a conversation with himself seemingly, or someone else, as his eyes were glazed over. Naruto, Rias called out to him, snapping him out of his thoughts. Are you alright? She asked in concern. Giving them a smile, Naruto responded. I'm fine. Just a bit shocked that another version of me most likely died in his world. Guess you can't win everywhere. Though he doubted he was truly dead. You're taking this pretty well, Akino said with a raised brow. It was odd for her to see someone take a version of their death so nonchalantly. Naruto shrugged. I have a feeling it's not like what it shows. It's not easy to get rid of me. Besides, who is this masked member of Akatsuki? Kaneko questioned. Naruto groaned for a second, confusing them more. That is complicated. It would take me a while to explain everything right now, so just think of them as a group of. He stopped once again to think up the right word to use. Villains, although not all of them are necessarily that. Is it really that complicated? Naruto frantically nodded at Ria's question. He didn't really want to go through the story of the Akatsuki right now, as he was more curious to see what exactly his counterpart's fate was. It was obvious there had been a previous fight when Kakashi arrived to the Valley of the End. Kakashi had known things would be grim the moment he left Konoha after his two subordinates, and the other Konoha shinobi, Sasuke, had defected, and Naruto along with several of his peers had been in pursuit. Kakashi made contact with the various young shinobi one by one. It was obvious the fight had been a running battle. For each one of the enemy defeated, one of the young Konoha shinobi had been forced to remain behind, unable to catch up due to injuries. Two of them had been in critical condition when retrieved by medical Nin, and another two would be in the hospital for a while still. The least injured was Shikamaru Nara, the team leader, with a simple broken finger. Despite that, he still had extreme chakra exhaustion, and without proper supplements would have also died. With him being the least wounded of the team, it hadn't looked bright for the squad. Shinobi, Rias murmured to herself before looking over to Naruto. Are you and the others in the story ninjas? Yeah, Naruto answered, confused by her tone that had shifted from her normal one into a slightly excited one. A shinobi village full of ninjas in a feudal Japan style. Rias almost squealed in joy as her eyes sparkled from the information. Clearly, her otaku side was coming out from all this information being revealed to her. To think there is a universe out there that has all of these. She was beaming with excitement. She was definitely going to be talking with Naruto more since he was one of them. However, all her fanboying thoughts came to a stop when a giggle reached her ears. And she knew perfectly who that was, as she didn't even need to turn to look at Akino watching her with an amused and teasing smile. Ah, Bucho, you're nearly drooling there. Akino's smile became even bigger when she saw how red her best friend had become as she turned to look at the blonde, who was not sure if he should be amused or confused. I would watch out if I were you, Naruto. She might just jump you. Akino! Rias stopped her before she could continue to embarrass her any further. She glared at her friend, though it only made Akino giggle even more seeing her try to squash down her embarrassment. Just Rias sighed in acceptance, knowing that it would be a waste of time to try and stop her teasing. Just read further, please. The black-haired girl complied, but not before sending Naruto a wink as the blonde chuckled awkwardly, not exactly sure what had happened there. Meanwhile, Kaneko just deadpanned at both her fellow devils for their quirks before shaking her head and glancing at the blonde, her own interest growing as they read further about him and his world. Upon arrival at the last battlefield, the one between Naruto and his formerly closest friend and comrade turned traitor, Kakashi had briefly frozen up. He hadn't been afraid, at least not for himself. However, the amount of chakra expended in the area and the sheer darkness of it set the hairs on the back of his neck on end in worry for what had happened to his students. When he actually saw Naruto, he had immediately set into action. Using a sealing scroll, he had unsealed a medical kit and moved to help the blonde. Noticing the slashed headband nearby that no doubt had belonged to Sasuke, signifying his status as breaking his vows to the village, Naruto sighed. He even left the village in another universe. The blonde muttered under his breath with an annoyed tone. Was it some sort of universal thing for his Uchiha friend? It probably is. Kurama answered him as he wouldn't be surprised by it. This Sasuke person? Why did he leave your village? Kaneko asked. She did not like betrayals at all, and seeing someone else have that happen to them always bothered her, especially after believing that her sister had gone mad and betrayed her for all these years. Naruto thought about it for a second before shaking his head. It's complicated, he answered lamely. Explaining all that stuff wasn't something he was in the mood for right now. If the story was supposed to be in their world, it would most likely come up. Complicated again? Yeah, he nodded. Just know that he was an idiot for everything he did, he grumbled at the end. Before he could even reach the boy, however, he was forced into leaping backward to bring up a kunai in defense, as his opponent seemed to simply appear before him in a swirl of the air. He had never seen anything like it. However, the robes the man wore immediately identified him as an enemy, as if Naruto hadn't gone through enough that day with Sasuke's betrayal and his attempted murder. Now the gang of criminals that had been hunting Kakashi's student for the beast sealed within him at birth had again come to collect their quarry. Naruto knew what was coming when Akino stopped reading and all the devils simultaneously turned to look at him. Well, since the story had already revealed it, he might as well tell them a bit about it. That would be my good friend Kurama thereafter. On cue, in the middle of the room, a projection of Kurama appeared to show the devils how he looked. Naruto smiled. How convenient. Well, that's him. Only about like 20 or 30 times bigger. Again on cue, the room suddenly expanded, making it much bigger than before, which gave room for the projection of Kurama to grow to his true size. The devils were all astonished at the menacing sight in front of them as the giant beast loomed over them. And he's sealed inside of you? Rias asked with an incredulous look on her face. Sure is, Naruto replied casually with a grin, causing them to sweat drop slightly. Why are they after him? Kaneko's question made Naruto look over to her afterward. She saw him thinking about something and seemingly hesitating. Complicated again? Naruto rubbed his chin for a second before shrugging. Kind of. Their leader wanted Kurama and the others to put the whole world under an illusion that would show their dreams. There is that went to all of it, but that's the gist of it. The whole world? They asked in surprise. The blonde repeated that with a nod as he let them digest the information. There was no need for him to go in detail and explain everything of it. The Jonin moved in less than an instant, and was stabbing his drawn blade through the man's heart with a single quick strike. At least he would have been, except his arm seemed to pass right through his enemy's chest as if they weren't even there. The shock was enough for Kakashi to pulse his chakra to try and dispel any illusion he was under before realizing he wasn't under one. Intangibility was a truly terrifying ability to possess. Akino shook her head. That's an understatement. Annoying to deal with too, Naruto grumbled as he remembered their fight against Obito. You got him in the end, Kurama told. Rias perked up at his tone as it sounded like he also had to deal with it. You fought against him? She asked, her tone full of interest. She wondered how they even beat someone with an ability like that. There had to be some sort of exploit. Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. But enough of that. It might show it in the story. He was sure his teacher, Kakashi, would try something out. The man was smart enough, speeding up his attacks, believing that perhaps he could strike his unknown enemy before he activated his ability each time Kakashi failed to land a single blow. Still faster and faster he attacked, grunting and howling with determination, while his opponent seemed to stare boredly at him, as if taunting him. It was infuriating. The Jonin hadn't been so angry and frustrated since he found out Orochimaru had attacked his team in the Chunin exams and he couldn't help them. He knew that if he couldn't stop the man he would take Naruto, and Jiraiya had told him of the Akatsuki, of their plans to rip the burden from each of the Jinchuriki, killing them in the process in the most agonizing way. Naruto winced at that. It was still something that bothered him that all those other Jinchurikis had been caught by the Akatsuki, and their village hadn't tried to save them. Apart from the cloud, how do you even beat someone like that? Akino asked. The man could seemingly use the ability without any effort, and whatever Naruto's teacher had thrown at him had been useless, so far. Naruto smirked. Sensei is actually the ideal person against him, he said cryptically as they waited for him to elaborate, but the blonde made a zipping motion as they pouted at him. That prompted Akino to quickly read further so they could find out what the blonde meant by his statement. The Toad Sannin had told him of a couple of other Jinchuriki that had suffered the same fate, and the ritual was evidently nothing but pure pain for the victim and carried on 4 days on end. Lasting longer the more powerful the Jinchuriki sealed beast was. Naruto carried the most powerful of all of them. He refused to let the man take him away. Still the man in the swirling mask took the boy anyway. Once again, all 3 devils turned to deadpan at Naruto, remembering that he had said his teacher was the perfect counter against the man. Naruto couldn't respond to them as his mouth was slightly open in surprise. Okay, I didn't really expect that. You can't blame me. It's another universe. He defended himself with a shrug. The voice said it focused on you. There must be more than you just getting captured and killed at the start so quickly, Kaneko surmised, reminding them all of what was said at the start to them. That's right. Akino agreed. Something else must have happened that saved you from this Obito. Maybe Kurama did something? Rias theorized, but was confused when Naruto chuckled. Doubt it. The devils obviously wanted him to expand on that as they looked at him. Kurama and I weren't really on the best of terms back then, the blonde explained with a grimace, remembering those times. Never thought you all of people would actually get to me. Naruto smiled at Kurama's words. I told you I'll get to you one time. All Kakashi had been able to do in the end was scream in frustration and rage. That and try an experimental jutsu. He noticed the similarity between the man's teleporting ability and his own recently discovered Kamui rather easily. He had hoped that they would somehow cancel one another or destabilize the warp and force his enemy to remain and distract him long enough for Kakashi to grab Naruto and make a break for it. Instead it only seemed to propel the pair through the closing portal faster. Is that what you meant by him being the perfect counter? Naruto slowly nodded, but most of his attention was on what was said. It should counter it, but I didn't expect it to have a reaction like this instead, he admitted with a small frown. Space-time jutsu are still unknown to us even after all these many years of multiple types of them appearing. Kurama said from within his seal. I wouldn't be surprised if something different happened from that clash in that universe compared to ours, I guess. He conceded. However, he was curious about what exactly that had led to. The veteran ninja kicked himself for that. He should have known better. How stupid to use an untested jutsu in battle. With such high stakes as well. The amount of times he had lectured his team on that very same point whispered in his head as he slowly made his way back to Konoha, not even bothering to search for Sasuke further. It's a good thing. He shouldn't. He betrayed all of you after all. Rias stated firmly. Kaneko nodded in agreement with her king. Only if it's to bring him back so they can judge him for the dissertation should they go after him, she added as Naruto winced at their statement. He would normally object but understood that they had different views and ideals compared to him. Now, a week since the incident at the Valley of the End and for the first time since his father's suicide when he was 5, Kakashi entered his father's office and stared at the same blade the elder Hatake had used to take his own life. The last week had taken its toll on Kakashi. He was drunk and on the verge of losing it. His final student, with Naruto missing and Sasuke considered dead to him, Sakura was the only thing keeping him from the brink. The girl had once been a total brat, even more than Naruto could be. Still she had grown over the last several months on Team 7, and towards the end had been the one to comfort the boys when they were suffering from something, especially Naruto. The two had initially had a poor relationship. Naruto had a crush on the girl and she had considered his interest annoying at best. By the time Sasuke had turned on the village, though the pair had been like siblings, the room had a somber mood to it as the black-haired girl read the parts. Rias winced in sympathy for the man. I can't imagine how it would feel as a teacher to lose 2 of your students in such a way. She muttered sadly. While she was not a teacher or anything, if she lost any of her peerage members in the way the silver-haired man did, it would absolutely destroy her. It made her think about the problems each of her peerage member had in their life, and while she had solved the loneliness problem they had, she hadn't really tried to help them with their other stuff. It made her feel incompetent as she frowned when she came to that realization. I haven't really been a good king, she thought to herself in disappointment. She couldn't think on it for too much longer though when the others spoke up. I never really thought how Sensei would feel when Sasuke left the village, and he saw me injured like that. Looking at it now, Naruto understood how his obsession with bringing back Sasuke made him forget about how some of the others were affected by all of this, and it made him feel scummy. Don't beat yourself over it now. It's all over. No need for any depressing thoughts now. Kurama berated him as Naruto sighed inwardly before smiling. Thanks, Kurama. The Bija scoffed, saying nothing else but had his usual smile on his face inside the seal. Kaneko nodded. The only one he has left is the Sakura, she stated, looking at the projection of the girl, though it showed an older version of her. She could see why the blonde in the room had a crush on her, as she was a beautiful young woman. Naruto, after his slightly depressing thoughts, was now also staring at the visage of the pink-haired girl with a smile. Akino, though, seeing the chance of being able to tease someone, instantly took it and turned to Naruto with a sly smile. Oh, does our blonde here still have a crush on Sakura? Naruto deadpanned at her comment. Read further. I don't hear denial, Akino continued in a sing-song voice, all the while giggling at his face before everyone urged her to continue. He had seen it when he told her about what happened to Naruto and Sasuke. He half expected her to fly to the defense of her precious Sasuke-kun, who she had pined after for as long as he could remember. Instead she wept for the boy who had become her closest friend over the last year. He had been forced to comfort her, as she spewed her guilt at not treating Naruto as kindly as she should have. More surprising had been her sudden distaste for all things Uchiha, let alone Sasuke. Sure, there was still a conflicted emotion there. She had truly loved the boy, above even herself, despite how unhealthy her infatuation was. In the end, though, she knew that it was Naruto who had gone from being the dead last loudmouth she once knew to arguably her best friend. On their missions together, it had been Naruto after all, not Sasuke, that comforted her when she made her first kill. It had been Naruto that had insisted on the burying of even their fallen enemies when possible, much to her approval. It had been Naruto she watched win the hearts and minds of people from snow country to the land of waves. Akino had a proud look on her. It's a good thing she got over that. Her voice held a proud tone too. The other two devils were of the same mind as their friend. It's sweet to see how her views changed so much on you, Rias muttered with a smile. It reminded her of some sort of fairy tale where a girl slowly fell in love with someone who she deemed not worthy of her interest, though. That train of thought also reminded her of her marriage with Riser as her mood damped somewhat. Dead last? Kaneko turned her eyes towards Naruto, who had a sulking look on his face at the reminder. Academy sucked. That was all he said with a pout. It wasn't his fault, he had no one to help him with anyone during that time. Iruka had only accepted him at the very end, and it probably might have gone different if it was earlier. Winning the hearts of two countries, Akino mused in interest. Her curiosity about the whiskered blonde just kept getting higher and higher as they read further about the story. Naruto had a slightly smug look on his face when she said that. Those were good times. It had been a while since he had seen the people from those places. I should probably give them a visit. Kakashi's first lesson to Team 7 had been simple. Those who abandoned the mission were trash, those who abandoned their comrades were worse than that. Sasuke was thus lower than trash, and because of him Naruto looked to be dead. If that was the case, Sakura had confided in Kakashi that she didn't know if she could forgive him, and Kakashi had quickly learned the rest of their comrades, especially the other boys from the failed Uchiha retrieval mission, shared that sentiment. Albeit to a much more vengeful and violent degree, it seemed Naruto had earned some truly loyal comrades without even realizing it. You have some good friends, Rias told the only male in the room with a smile. Yeah. Naruto nodded in agreement, a smile of his own on his face at the thought of everyone he had bonded with during his 18 years of life so far. Many familiar faces came to mind quickly. The others in the room nodded along as they all knew the importance of having good bonds in their life. So now several shinobi, most notably the silver and pink-haired teammates of Naruto, were anguished, wondering if the boy had truly perished, and if not, was he at least safe. They had no idea how much better his life seemed to be getting. I told you it's not that easy to get rid of me. Naruto reminded them of when he said those words. Akino hummed. Well, if the words that voice said were anything to go by, then you are most likely alive. Naruto agreed. I do wonder how exactly happened to my other self. He spoke aloud, his curiosity. Ria seemed to be in thought for a second as she looked at her friends in the room. Could it be, she muttered, getting everyone's attention as they looked at her. It might be possible you ended up in our world. It would explain why they were here in this room reading about all of this together with Naruto. She also knew about the dimensional gap, having heard about it during a discussion between her brother and Ajuka. That means there is a chance my other will most likely meet your counterparts in there. Naruto slowly said as a grin formed on his face. That's pretty cool. This multiverse stuff is really cool, definitely. The devils instantly agreed with him. It was indeed something fascinating to know there were other versions of you and your universe out there, and the fact that it was possible to travel to them. Naruto, looks like we're finally meeting you of that world then. They saw the younger version of the blonde appear in front of them, though they couldn't see anything else apart from that right now. And we will find out what exactly happened to you, or well, actually, the other you. Rias corrected herself at the end, getting a giggle from Akino and chuckles from the others. He always hated this place. Naruto blinked as it became clear to them where his counterpart was. It was a place he was very familiar with, having gone there a lot during his life. My mindscape, huh? What? The others asked, perplexed. My mindscape, Naruto repeated. It's weird to explain it, but that's where I meet up with Kurama. I used to hate it, but it's different now, he explained as they slowly nodded in understanding. Never knew something like that existed actually. Akino mused out loud. Rias nodded in agreement. They all had learned some new stuff from this. Like the fact that there is a whole world out there with ninjas living in feudal Japan-style villages. She thought to herself in giddiness. His own mind. Was it okay to hate your own mind? Maybe that was unhealthy. Tsunade would know, Sakura might know as well. Ino would probably be the best person to ask, being as her clan dealt with mind-based jutsu so often. Either way, healthy or not, he hated the mindscape he found himself in. He had learned at some point, he wasn't sure from where, probably from Ino actually, just listening to her talk, that a person's mindscape was influenced by their life. It was how they saw their world without being hidden behind the lies they tell themselves and others. Rias hummed as they all processed the information, save for Naruto, as he already knew all of it. This makes me wonder what my mindscape would look like. She thought out loud. Kaneko immediately answered. A world full of your favorite anime locations and giant figures of characters in it. Or it might look like Naruto's world but with more anime and Japan-related stuff in there. Rias squawked at her answer, as she knew Kaneko was dead serious about it while Akino openly laughed at what she said. Ria's face once again turned red because of the teasing, which got even worse when she saw Naruto looking at her in amusement. Naruto chuckled at her embarrassment. He had to admit, she looked quite cute right now, as he mostly thought she was someone who didn't get flustered at their first meeting. How right you are, Kaneko. Akino then turned the tables on the small girl. I imagine yours being a world full of sweets that you can drown yourself in, she teased as the girl in question sent her a miffed look for what she said. Kaneko huffed. Yours is definitely a room full of bondage material, and all to accommodate your sadistic nature, she fired back, but only got a shameless smile in return from the ponytailed girl. Excuse me? Naruto almost choked on his spit in surprise at what the petite girl said. Akino let loose another giggle from her mouth. Oh, you know me so well, Kaneko. The blonde shook his head in amusement before leaning back into his seat, watching the chaos unfold before his eyes with an amused smile as they started going back and forth with one another. Should you be really laughing with your depressing mindscape? Kurama asked him as Naruto nearly face-faulted at the reminder. Don't blame that on me, Kurama scoffed. Thanks to you I have to stay in this depressing sewer. The tailed beast sighed. Are you seriously gonna start this all over again now? Naruto appeared in his mindscape, staring at the beast with a flat look. Suffice it to say it took a minute or two before everyone was done throwing back and forths at one another. In that train of thought it seemed fitting that once in his mindscape he found himself within a world drowned in dark, dank, ankle-deep water with aged and cracked black and gray walls made to look like some sort of sewer or desolate labyrinth. He didn't really understand why there were so many paths, he only ever followed the one path. The one that led him to his prisoner. The great and terrible Kyubi Kitsune, the fearsome nine-tailed fox demon that had made his life a living hell for most of its short length. It makes sense why your mindscape would be like that with your childhood, Rias spoke out sadly. They did not know all of the blonde's childhood but enough to know it wasn't a pleasant one. The other devils agreed with their king, but Akino was curious about something. These other paths in there. You never followed them at all? She asked him. Naruto shook his head. I actually haven't done that. He hummed afterward. I don't really know why too. It was definitely worth something checking out. Kurama, you know what they lead to? The blonde asked his companion. Are you seriously asking me that? How am I supposed to know? I can't fit through the halls. Naruto blinked at what he said before sheepishly laughing. Right, my bad. The blonde admitted, laughing at his friend's grumbling. About time, Runt, I have desired to speak with you for a while now. Your continued resistance to meet with me, while unconscious, annoys me. The growling voice reverberated through the hall. I was unconscious. Why would I want to visit you anyway, Fox? Naruto growled back, surprisingly unafraid of the towering beast before him. Ah, this is what you meant when you said you and Kurama weren't on the best of terms. Yep. Naruto answered. Back then, we really did not get along with each other at all. Rias was slightly surprised. Your other self doesn't seem to be bothered at all by Kurama, she said, shivering slightly, remembering when they were shown how big the beast was. It was a scary sight, and for a boy at that age to simply shrug it all off and talk to him like that was impressive. Naruto laughed. Heh, you get used to it after a while. After a while? Kurama asked flatly. The first time we met, you asked me to pay rent as giving you chakra for being sealed inside of you. The fox reminded him as Naruto guffawed at the reminder. Kurama merely shook his head at his friend's laughter as he thought back to that time. To think a 13-year-old would have the balls to say something like that to him still baffled him to this day. Although, he guessed it was something that made Naruto, well, Naruto, tch, as bold and annoying as always. Just like your mother, the demon said, with a devious smirk hidden behind his feral looks as he began his manipulation of the boy. Honestly, the fools of the Runts village had made the path easy for him by hiding not only the identity of his parents, but his status as a container, and his true status as a clan heir from him. He would be using all of that to his own advantage. The devils were confused at that. Does Kurama also know about your parents? Naruto scratched his head as he nodded. Yeah, he was one of the ones who knew about them. Kaneko shook her head. Are the higher-ups of your village stupid? So many knew and you knew nothing about them? Not even their names. The silence was telling for everyone as they understood that keeping it a secret now backfired at them with Kurama, now most likely to turn the boy against them. You're a clan heir too. Rias muttered in interest as that was something she could relate on with Naruto. Oh yeah, that. Yeah, I am. Naruto said. But my clan is all dead with only me and one other left alive at this point. So, I'm not sure if you can even call it a clan anymore. That's sad. Kaneko could relate to the fact of there being few of your own kind left in the world. Oh, just shut up, you stupid mother? What the hell do you mean, mother? How do you know my mother? Naruto was pressed to the bars, not afraid of the massive claws that his tenant could gleefully use to rip him apart with. I'm curious about that too actually, Akino said, looking over at the blonde for an answer along with her friends. Naruto stared back at them as he debated on if she should tell them or not. My mom was actually the previous container of Kurama before Dad sealed in me, he revealed, getting some surprised looks from them. That makes sense then, Kaneko muttered with a nod before her, and the others caught what he said at the end. Your dad sealed it in you? They asked in surprise at the same staring at each other before looking back at Naruto, who chuckled at their interaction. The blonde shrugged. He had no other choice. Plus, no one else but me could have handled it at the time. The mood had dampened somewhat after the reveal as it quieted down, prompting Akino to continue reading before it started getting awkward from the silence. It was an expected reaction. Naruto had been alone for his entire life. The closest thing he had to a mother was the 5th Hokage Tsunade Senju, and he had only known her a few short months, most of which he had spent on missions or training. The Kyuubi knew precisely what he was doing by dropping that he knew his mother into the conversation. A visual of the said woman appeared in front of them as instantly their attention was brought to the huge breasts, as they were even bigger than Akino's and Rias, who both had quite the set. Okay, and here I thought mothers were big, Rias muttered, impressed at them as they seemed to surpass even her mother's breasts. Kaneko looked at how big they were before her eyes trailed down to her own chest as she started comparing them. A second later, a miffed and jealous look appeared on her face as Akino giggled at her displeasure, patting her head on the back. There, she said as it only served to further Kaneko's annoyance. Shut up, she told the giggling girl. Akino, stop teasing her and just read further. Now that he had done it, the Kitsune was actually a little ashamed of it. Not trying to manipulate Naruto, of course, that was a given, it was the fact that it was too easy. Perhaps if the boy's instructors at the academy hadn't purposefully undercut him, or that horrid hag of a matron at the orphanage hadn't simply beaten him every time he tried to play with the other children his age, Naruto might have caught on to his manipulation. However, thanks to his severely hampered social understanding, the fact of the situation soared over the desperate blonde's head, just like it had when Mizuki had manipulated him roughly a year prior. The village really didn't do a good job at all when it came to you. Ria scowled as they processed what they read. Beating a kid for trying to play with others his age. Akino did not like it at all as she shook her head. That woman is not fit to take care of kids, Kaneko agreed. You said they didn't try that with you, right? She asked, turning to look at Naruto. The blonde shook his head as she hummed. What made it different in your other version's case? Why did they do it there and not with you? She wondered out loud, but no one could answer her. Naruto shrugged. I don't know. No one tried anything like that with me. I would have just punched or fought back. They all sweat dropped at his method, though they couldn't blame him for it. No one simply wanted to be treated like that and not retaliate. Kyuubi was even a little put off with the display. He knew the topic would set his jailer off. However, to react in such a strong manner sent a shockwave through the mindscape that unintentionally activated the siphoning of portion of chakra as the boy unknowingly drew on it. In that brief instant he felt all of Naruto's emotions centered on the matter. The pure heart-wrenching desperation was enough to briefly surprise even one such as the Kyuubi. More than that, though, it alarmed him to the possibilities of what could happen to him and proven what he had thought was occurring to his prison's body. The seal the brat's father had placed on him had been made to facilitate the Kyuubi's chakra overflowing into the boy whenever he needed it, but this was different. It had been ripped away from the Kitsune forcefully. Violently even. Never before had something like that happened except when the damned Uzumaki had used their chains on him to subdue him, or that bastard first Hokage had utilized his Kekkei, Genkai to do the same. In the past he had pushed his chakra out to influence his vessel and weaken the seal, but now it was as if the seal had come for him. These seals sound very interesting, Rias muttered in slight awe at the fact that it could withhold someone that big and the being couldn't do anything against it. She had heard about seals in her own world but did not know very much about them. Naruto wholeheartedly agreed. Yeah, I don't know much about it myself, but they are quite powerful. Having had some explanation about his own seal and how complex and intricate it was something he would not forget, though it also turned him off from learning any of it. This is done with chakra? Kaneko asked him, her tone full of curiosity, and that only rose when she got a yes in return, making her wonder what exactly there is more that one could do with chakra. In truth, not even Kushina and Mito's seals had been able to do that. Only when in battle with the red-haired witches and bound with their chains had that happened. Once sealed within them, using his chakra had been difficult for them, and even when able had negatively affected their bodies. Kushina had looked as though she had been dunked in boiling water after using his potent chakra. That just further solidified his thoughts on the changes that had happened when they entered this place. Boy, focus. I will tell you of her in time. Even though I despise her memory, I'm not such a monster as you think I am. For now you need to learn about what happened since that accursed Uchiha caused you to fall unconscious after that final blow to your chest. Naruto seemed to calm down at the growling tone of the nine-tailed beast. Fine, but I'm going to hold you to that, Kyuubi. Again the Kyuubi was a little surprised by the actions of his jailer. Usually it wouldn't be till the next time that they met that he would be able to discuss what he wanted. Kushina had been the same way. At least Mito had some proper respect for him. Naruto deadpanned. You know, maybe if you hadn't gone all, you runt and or stupid human, it could have been different. The blonde told his friend inside the seal. Kurama scoffed. Like that would have changed anything when it came to you. Naruto stayed silent as he knew his younger self wouldn't care too much about as Kurama smirked in victory at having one-upped his container. Mito was the one who held Kurama before your mother then? Akino questioned with a hum. Yeah, but I don't really know anything about her. All that she was the first to have Kurama. He said with a shrug at the end, knowing they would ask for more about her. Do not make demands of me, runt. Now shut your disgusting human mouth and listen. He inwardly smirked as Naruto seethed below him. It gave him extra amusement to know how important his precious smile was to his jailer. He worried over his dental hygiene like a woman worried over their hair, though the fox begrudgingly admitted that the dazzling smile the boy had seemed worth it. He is right. You do have a dazzling smile. Rias admitted as they had seen the blonde smile multiple times. Naruto gave her the dazzling smile she spoke of. Thank you, he muttered while Akino and Kaneko looked at their king curiously for her comment as it wasn't something she usually did. Can't believe my other thinks like that. Naruto didn't have to be in his mindscape to know Kurama was shaking his head. Your other is right. Don't hate on him for telling the truth. The blonde argued, getting a friendly eye roll from the giant fox. You have been unconscious for a week. What's worse is many things have changed around us in your time asleep. The first is that you very nearly died. Don't hurry and thank me or anything. The Uchiha has tried to kill you, as I always knew he eventually would. What do you take from that whelp? Kyuubi studied Naruto as he watched emotions run through the boy's bright blue eyes. Just like his father and mother, he could hide his emotions with his mask of a happy idiot, perhaps even better than his parents could, but his eyes always told his secrets. They always told the truth of what he was actually feeling. Be grateful, brat. Had you not deflected the Chidori strikes meant for your heart, and had I not chosen to heal you, you would have long since died. Had that red-eyed brat hit what he was aiming for, not even I or that blonde bimbo you call a Hokage could have saved you in time. The boy snarled up at Kyuubi for the insult towards Tsunade but largely managed to keep his calm. Sadly for you, when that scarecrow you call sensei came to get you, another arrived as well. A member of the Akatsuki, I presume. Kyuubi knew full well who it was. Well, that is to say, he had encountered him before when he had ripped him from Kushina's seal and took control of his mind to set him on Konoha, a man masquerading as Madara Uchiha. While the two were in fact similar, Madara's chakra was far darker and more vile than the man who had kidnapped Naruto. So this person, Obito, was making himself out to be this Madara Uchiha? Kaneko questioned the blonde before she got a nod. And no one knew? Nope. The blonde replied before blinking. Well, except for Kurama, I guess. But why would he do that? Akino asked before Kaneko could. It's for his plan, Naruto stated before pointing at the book, not wanting to get into explaining all of it. It got Akino to pout at him, but he simply shrugged his shoulders and still pointed at the book. Kyuubi, where are we? Are we at the Akatsuki base? Are they about to kill us? What's going on? We have to wake up now. We have to escape. We can't stay here. Kyuubi rolled his eyes as Naruto began pacing while motioning frantically with his hands in front of his cage. Shut up, runt, and sit down. You're insufferable. He roared, shaking the bars of his cage as he did. No! You shut up! How are you not worried right now? The Akatsuki are hunting me because of you, you know. This is your fault, Naruto roared back, again somewhat surprising the massive fox with his tenacity. Surprise quickly turned to rage after that. My fault? You thankless little ant. I keep you alive and this is your thanks to me? Kyuubi slammed his hands into the bars separating the two and roared at his container. How exactly did you two become friends? Rias asked incredulously. They looked like they wanted to tear each other apart there, and it confused her greatly how it turned from that to them being friends. Naruto chuckled. Kurama is stubborn, but it took some actions from me and we both warmed up to each other. Took me a while. He explained with a smile. Shut up. You and I both know you only heal me because you don't want to risk dying because of the seal put on me. Pervy Sage told me all about it. He told me how this seal was different, and that normally when a tailed beast dies they reform in a few years. But that my seal was crafted by the fourth Hokage with help from the god of death himself at the cost of his own soul, and that if I die I might just drag you along with me. The fact that you are suddenly so mortal terrifies you. So stop with the kind act, we both know you are anything but. Naruto screamed back. Yet again Kyuubi was a little shocked by the boy, though this time it was more due to the well-thought-out rebuttal that the boy had. He had always known Naruto was more intelligent than he let be known. Always playing the fool to better hide behind his mask and protect himself from abuse. It hurt him to be ridiculed constantly, but it hurt a lot less than beatings for being seen as the demon regaining its strength. Still, though the boy was a primarily foolish child, there was little of the world he truly knew of, especially when it came to things his own village hid from him. It seemed perhaps this chain of events was forcing the boy to mature slightly, and come out of his self-imposed shell. He was still too emotional because of the situation though, trying to come to terms with his best friend attempting to murder him, stabbing him in the back metaphorically and in the chest literally. The fact that Kyuubi somehow knew his mother, that he nearly died, and that he was taken by the Akatsuki. Perhaps a different approach would yield better results for their current conversation and get things back on track. Rias sweated slightly hearing all that. That is quite a lot to pile up on someone in just one day, she muttered with a wince. Naruto was glad he wasn't in his counterpart's shoes right now. Finding out his friend had deserted their village was enough for him. Yeah, I can't blame him for reacting like that. He wasn't even sure how he himself would react when so much information was dumped on him. It's kind of weird having thoughts about me like this. Well, another me, that is. The blonde thought to himself in amusement. You've dealt with your clones for years and you find this weird now? Kurama asked him. That's different. You know what I meant. Naruto argued for himself against his friend while the others in the room were none the wiser about his conversation with Kurama. Kid, you need to calm down and listen to me. He growled out more softly than ever before. Leaning down to peer at Naruto closely, he pressed his face to the bars of his cage. The massive ruby orb Kyuubi had for an eye was as large as Naruto was tall. The devils shivered a bit at the sight of the giant eye. It's impressive that he can keep calm with something like that in front of him. It's not that bad, Naruto commented as he had gotten used to it very quickly. But what's this kid thing? It's what a fox child is called, Kaneko answered as it only perplexed Naruto further. The blonde scratched his head in confusion. Why would your other suddenly call me that? I don't know either. I would never say anything like that. Kurama admitted with a small scowl at seeing a version of him calling someone Kit. His scowl only got bigger when Naruto chuckled at his obvious annoyed tone. The blonde glared up at Kyuubi and for a brief moment the fox could nearly see his mother. He internally chuckled at the thought. He might have his father's blonde hair and bright blue eyes, however his face, eye shape, and attitude was all Kushina Uzumaki, and as much as he hated being sealed away, he couldn't bring himself to hate his vessels, not fully. None but Mito had willingly had them sealed in them, and Kushina had even altered her seal to allow him to share in her senses when he wished, experiencing glimpses of the outside world again. That was something Minato had worked into the seal when he had crafted it all those years ago. What's with the new name? Naruto asked, having calmed down enough to cross his arms and scowl at the giant-tailed beast before him. For a fox a child is a kit. Kyuubi sighed. That name is more fitting than ever before. I will come back to that later. For now though let me tell you this. We are no longer held prisoner by the Akatsuki. Someone, or rather something has rescued us. Kyuubi explained, and Naruto let out a relieved sigh before slumping to the damp ground. They all blinked in surprise as the sentence was read before leaning forward in anticipation. Finally, we're getting to the part where we find out what happened to other me. The blonde muttered in excitement. Akino nodded as she pursed her lips. I do think Rias might have been onto something when she said you ended up in our world. Rias smiled. It would be nice for my other to meet you. She already knew what her other would be asking the blonde when they met as Naruto glanced at her with a raised brow. Your other is gonna ask him about me being a ninja, isn't he? Rias was taken aback by what he said as she went red in the face from embarrassment, while it only got worse when Akino giggled and even Kaneko cracked a smile. That's not true. She weakly argued in return and urged her best friend to read further to save her from any further embarrassment. However, there are a few issues. We are not in Konoha, actually we are in a whole new dimension than before. Whenever the man who took us was fleeing, your teacher tried to capture him using some odd jutsu. The two created some sort of distortion that caused us to wind up here. The people that saw a grown man in a suspicious mask carrying a severely injured child around by his throat immediately attacked him and sent him jumping back into our world, leaving us behind. We are now stuck here, likely for good. Kyuubi watched the dread fill the boy's eyes, and a small part of him, an infinitely tiny fraction of his being, felt sympathy for the child that had everything taken from him time and again at every point in his short life. That's not even all, so listen. The Kyuubi got his attention one more time. This world's humans cannot use chakra, however another group of beings here can. For whatever reason, whether because of my chakra flowing into you to try and heal you, or simply because of our connection, you have been made to more closely resemble those beings. What I am saying is welcome to the Kitsune clan. You are now a nine-tailed fox like me. Kyuubi nearly laughed when the boy's expression turned blank. He stood still as a statue trying to work through everything in his head. Just like the Naruto in the story, the one in the room was in the same state for a couple of seconds. What? He managed to say out loud after breaking from his surprised state. There is a Kitsune clan? The blonde instantly showed up in his mindscape to see Kurama looking utterly confused as well. The giant fox scoffed. Hell if I know. I've never heard of anything about Kitsune clan or other nine-tailed foxes. Naruto was on the same mind as him as it was something he had never thought about. You should get back, the devils are trying to get your attention. Alright, Naruto? Naruto blinked once he came out of his mindscape to see the devils now sitting closer to see, looking at him in confusion. What? Akino giggled at his confused look. It was a cute look if she was being honest. You spaced out there for a second. She paused when she thought of something. Wait, were you talking with your friend Kurama? She asked curiously. They had seen him like this a couple of times already while they were reading, so him being only surprised by what they read wasn't the reason. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I was just talking to him about me becoming a part of this Kitsune clan. He said, his tone becoming slightly weirded out at the end. He's a yokai now. It's more of a race than a clan. Kaneko's voice reached his ears, making him look over at her. So my other me is like you then? She gave him a nod in return as Naruto leaned back into his seat. Didn't think another me would turn into a fox out there, he mused out loud. This multiverse stuff was quite interesting. It made him wonder how other versions of him were like. Well, Kyuubi thought. That's his breaking point it seems. A few too many changes at once. I can't wait until he realizes the ones caring for him aren't human either and aren't chakra users either. This will be an enjoyable few days. Not humans and aren't chakra users either. Kaneko murmured to herself, knowing what that meant. That means it's most likely devils that found him, or fallen angels. Akino couldn't help to contain the bitterness that seeped into her voice as she said those words. It made her fellow devils look at her in concern and the blonde in intrigue at her. Naruto could sense a lot of negative emotions coming off the beautiful Ravenet. There is a lot of negative emotions coming from her when she said that. He hummed inwardly. It was something that intrigued him. She doesn't like these fallen angels. He wondered why that was the case. Get yourself together, kid, you are beginning to wake up. Be sure to thank these nice people for saving your worthless life. If only they knew the headache they would get from doing that, maybe they would have let the Akatsuki keep you. Kyubi faded into the darkness of his cell. Wow, that's dark. Ria said, surprised that the fox would say something like that. It still baffled her that Naruto said they were friends. Yeah. He's a real ball of sunshine. Naruto chuckled to himself. I wonder if my other will get Kurama to warm up to him as well. He mused out loud. Akino shook her head. It's not looking like it so far. Naruto disagreed. Just give it some time. Trust. He muttered confidently. You always have to have the last laugh, don't you, fox bastard? Naruto grumbled as he snapped out of his funk. You are a fox bastard now too, Kit. The Kyubi laughed from within the darkness of his cell. Actually laughed, well, more of a chuckle, but still Naruto had never heard him do anything but snarl, roar, and growl. See, my other is already making him laugh, unlike his usual stuff. Naruto said with a slight smug smile. Akino rolled her eyes at him with a small smile. Yes, yes. She muttered in amusement. My other needs to stop with the kid calling. Kurama growled in annoyance at his other self. Never would he have thought that he would admonish himself, or well, another version of himself. Heh. Naruto chuckled inwardly at his plight. You are right though. It does feel a bit weird hearing you call me that, bastard. Rias, the crimson-haired ruined princess, would be considered by most to be above watching over and caring for a boy that had more or less shown up on her family's doorstep out of thin air. In actuality, though, the Gremory clan were renowned for their kindness, compassion, and loving attitudes. That and something seemed to draw her to the younger teen. He was around Kaniko's age, maybe a little older or younger, though it was hard to tell. He seemed muscular but thin and lean, so telling what age he was at the start of puberty was impossible for her. Well, that all but confirms that your other did end up with devils, Akino said with a thankful smile. She was happy it wasn't with any fallen angels. Yes, Rias had her own smile. So it was Enai-sama who drove the masked guy away and saved you. She knew she could rely on her brother for moments like that. As goofy as he was still reliable at times. You look younger. Kaniko pointed out the fact, snapping them out of their thoughts. Rias blinked as she took a closer look at the image that was present in front of them. Now that you mention it, I do look younger. She murmured loudly. I assumed it was going to show us as the same age as now. I did too, Akino admitted. But I guess our other versions will get to know Naruto at a much earlier age than us. The last week had been rather stressful. The brief fight in her family garden between her brother, father, mother, and sister-in-law, and a strange masked man in a black and red cloak had seen the strange man that had been dragging the blonde boy before her around, sent packing back into whatever odd portal he used. Surzex had told her it was likely he had accidentally teleported into the garden while trying to take the boy with him. Her elder brother was usually right on these sorts of things. Whenever he dropped his facade of a carefree goofball and returned to the serious nature of the man who had earned his position as the de facto leader of the four Satans of the underworld. He really seemed to possess an inquisitive mind, the likes of which were typically reserved for comic book characters and cheap mystery novels. Rias still remembered seeing the horrible injuries the boy had when the masked man dropped him on the ground. Gaping holes in his chest and shoulder, a myriad of darkening bruises, broken bones, and smaller cuts and gashes. He looked like he had been tortured. She was nearly sick seeing the damage done to him. Grafia had acted quickly and raced off with him to care for his wounds. She had later told Rias that he seemed to possess a powerful healing factor, and would have possibly survived even without her help, though it would have taken much longer to recover. That was impressive in its own right. Rias had never seen someone recover from such injuries without magic or the bloodline of the Phoenix clan. Still, though, when Grafia, Surzex, and her parents had briefly glanced into his memories to try and figure out where he belonged, they all seemed to become extremely uncomfortable. Surzex in particular seemed to be especially agitated and close to anger over something, but she couldn't honestly tell what specifically. Naruto winced. Yeah, those injuries were not a joke. I did not enjoy them at all. He was glad that his healing factor was far better compared to other people. It wouldn't be fun for him to be stuck and injured for such a long time as normal people would with injuries like that. To think Kurama gives you that big of a boost when it comes to healing. Rias was slightly surprised as she shook her head in wonder. Yes, your other even compared it to the healing of the Phoenix clan. Akino trailed off at the end, frowning when she saw the expression on her friend's face at the mention of the clan she hated. By the way, Naruto got their attention. What's this about a Phoenix clan? He asked curiously, but raised an eyebrow when he felt a large number of negative emotions coming from her. What's with her suddenly? The Phoenix clan is another devil clan, Rias stated short and simple, and just like Akino, she was unable to restrain the bitterness seeping into her tone as she said those words. Naruto looked at her curiously before he shifted his gaze to the other two devils who shook their heads at him. It was obvious to him at this point what was going on as he leaned forward. Complicated? He whispered to them. Complicated. Both the devils confirmed in a whisper. Naruto leaned back into his chair, taking one last glance at the red-haired girl in wonder. What's the deal with this clan and her? He asked himself inwardly. It was almost the exact same feeling Akino gave off when fallen angels were mentioned. They then told her about some of the things that they had learned. She could tell they were keeping things back, not really what it was but that there seemed to be much they kept back. At least Rias had learned his name. Naruto Uzumaki. They said he used chakra, which seemed obvious to her. He had 9 tails and fox ears, didn't he? It was obvious he was a Kitsune yokai, however they wouldn't tell her much more than that. They also wouldn't let her be in the room alone with him. She either had to have her entire peerage with her or at least one of Surzek's peerage or her parents with her when she was there. Wait, hold on now. Naruto interrupted them as he had an aghast look on his face. Did that just say other me had fox ears and 9 tails? Yes, it did, Akino replied in amusement with a giggle at seeing how he looked. To make matters worse for the blonde, an image of how he looked like with said fox ears and tails appeared in front of them as it only served to make Akino's giggles louder and cause Rias to join her too. It caused the Uzumaki to slightly cringe at the image. Why doesn't Kaneko have them and my other does? It was not something he thought would ever see in his lifetime. Hearing Kurama's laughter certainly didn't help his situation. Come on, it doesn't look that bad. Rias shook her head at him. I would say it looks rather cute. Naruto frantically shook his head, suppressing a shiver. It looks completely weird on me. The blonde grumbled. He was glad there was no one else that saw him like this. He would not live it down if anyone else did see him like this. Kurama and the devils in the room were already bad enough as it was. At this moment her peerage was with her. They seemed almost as interested in the strange boy as she was. Kaneko had shown more emotion in the last 7 days than she had gotten out of her in the last 5 years. Perhaps that was expected though. Both were yokai after all, and both seemed to be hunted likely due to that fact. Rias knew the most coveted peerage members were those that held sacred gears or were young yokai. As much good as the peerage system did in replenishing the numbers of the devils, it still was a system that could be easily abused. She wouldn't be surprised if someone had attempted to kidnap and sell Naruto to a high-class devil for a hefty sum. Naruto would likely gain a large amount too. 9-tailed Kitsune were extremely rare, nearly as rare as the Nikosho like Kaneko. Kaneko had a slightly annoyed feeling bubbling within her when reminded of what happened to her race, as it only reminded her of what her sister did. You alright? Naruto's voice snapped her out of annoyed thoughts as she was surprised at the fact that he knew she wasn't happy. I'm alright. She replied quickly in her monotone tone, not saying anything else. It went silent in the room. Naruto blinked in surprise before slowly looking away. They all have something that sets them off, he thought, linking this to what happened with Rias and Akino's negative emotions. That thought briefly sparked anger within her. Kaneko had become much like a little sister figure in her mind since they met, and the thought about Kaneko going through that enraged her. Thankfully, while a passionate person, she wasn't a slave to her emotions. Turning her thoughts forcibly to better things, she couldn't help but chuckle at the sleeping duo before her. Kaneko had mentioned Naruto's chakra was very warm and protective, and had simply crawled up close to him before contentedly dozing off beside him like they were lifetime friends. The girl had even relaxed to the point to reveal her cat-like yokai features as she slept. Rias had to fight the urge to squeal in delight at the cute scene of the two small yokai sleeping side by side. She didn't want to wake them up. Akino immediately giggled at the visual they got for the scene. Hee, Kaneko-chan warmed up that quickly to him. She sent a teasing look to the younger devil who tried glaring at her for the teasing but didn't affect the older devil at all. Ah, you look very cute with those ears. Kaneko was completely caught off guard when Naruto patted her head all of a sudden as the contact caused her cat-like yokai features to pop out. The others in the room blinked in surprise at what they saw as the white-haired girl blushed in embarrassment. Looks like Naruto here has the same effect on Kaneko. Rias joined her best friend in teasing the younger devil, who shrunk in her seat, trying to make herself as small as possible. Naruto chuckled before he once again patted her head. Hey, didn't think my chakra would affect you as my other did with your counterpart, he said in amusement before he stopped as he felt she got teased enough for what happened to her. It didn't help that Akino had found the pair purred in their sleep when you pet their ears. Rias had to bite her knuckle to keep herself from waking the pair up. Her girlish squeal of joy replaced with small quiet squeaks as she looked out how adorable they were. Even Kiba chuckled at the scene. Purr? Naruto was certainly not amused by seeing a version of himself purr of having his ears get pet by someone. Akino was enjoying herself very much at all of this. To think we would see all of this. This is gold. Rias nodded with a smile of her own. It's certainly not something I would have thought I'd see from Kaneko. She looked over towards the mentioned girl to see her on the same page as the blonde, not amused by what was happening. Ha ha ha, you're purring too now? Kurama howled inside the seal as he couldn't contain his laughter at seeing his friend purr at having his ears get pet. Naruto rolled his eyes at the giant fox. Yeah, laugh it up all you want. I'm sure the story would show more about you too. We've already seen you calling others kit. He reminded the fox, who stopped laughing and scowled slightly at the reminder of what had happened. Today the four of them had gathered together. Rias had been talking to each of them. She told them she intended to make Naruto a member of her peerage like they were. Kaneko immediately agreed. She said his chakra was warm but didn't elaborate as to what that actually meant. Kiba and Akino were a little more on the fence. Kiba felt that perhaps it would be better to get to know the boy first. The adults had seemed a little distraught over something when looking through his memories, and had them only interact with the sleeping yokai when an adult was nearby or they were all together. Despite Rias' mother Venelina saying everything was fine, the precautions being taken still sent up red flags for the young knight. Akino had largely been won over by Rias and Kaneko. Not to mention the adorable image of the rook interacting with the boy made her want to squeal nearly as much as Rias. Still, as Rias' queen and right hand of her peerage, she had to think of the safety of Rias first and foremost. If Naruto turned out to be a threat, she would fry him with her lightning without thinking twice about it. Wait, hold on, your family managed to look into my memories? Naruto quickly asked, a bit surprised as he didn't think they would be capable of doing anything like what the Yamanaka could do. Rias shrugged her shoulders. I haven't seen them do it before, but I guess they can do it if they were able to do it there, she replied, also a bit surprised at the fact that her brother and the others could actually see other people's memories. Akino raised an eyebrow as she looked at Kaneko. What does your other mean by saying his chakra is warm? She asked, her lips slowly quirking up into a teasing smile as the opportunity presented itself once again to her. Now the others also looked over at her as Naruto tilted his head curiously at her. He had heard about this before from Karen that his chakra was warm, and she had explained it was a soothing feeling for sensory ninjas. Is that what she meant? Kaneko blushed a bit. It makes me feel comfortable and safe, she murmured before they leaned forward and told her to say it again. She nearly scowled at Akino, knowing she was only playing with her before she repeated what she said, only louder this time, much to her embarrassment. Naruto chuckled as he patted her head, the cat-like features that she had hidden away once again came out. She couldn't help but lean her head into his touch as she got comfortable. The other two devils smiled at the scene in front of them before they realized Naruto was looking at them in curiosity. So, you're gonna make me a part of this peerage of yours then? He asked. Rias blinked for a second before nodding her head with a smile. I'm sure my other self will ask you if you would want to become a part of my peerage, she answered, leaving the blonde to his own thoughts as he wondered what his other self would do. So the scene that the blonde fox yokai awoke to was not what he expected. Sure, Kyubi had said that people had been caring for him, however he expected to wake up in some kind of hospital room, not an ornate bedroom with an exceptionally cute girl with cat ears on his left side, a beautiful crimson-haired girl sitting beside the bed, and an equally beautiful Revenant sitting at a small table along the wall playing a board game with a very handsome blonde boy. What the hell? Is it that weird to wake up in my home? Rias asked with a tilt of her head. Naruto shrugged. It's just not something my other expected. He most likely expected some sort of hospital with nurses and doctors. Rias pursed her lips for a second. That does make somewhat sense. These people were abnormally attractive. Where the hell was he exactly that the people looked like they were about to start a modeling career? Ignoring that thought, Naruto kept his breathing even and watched them for a few moments. The white-haired girl beside him was asleep. Why she was in bed with him confused him. The redhead seemed to be staring at them as well. It was a bit creepy. Maybe she was guarding them? The other two repeatedly glanced their way but focused on their game. Trying to think of what to do, he nearly turned his head when the door suddenly opened and a pair of red-headed men and two women, one a brunette, and the other looking as though she could be Kakashi's much more attractive sister. Seriously, these people all looked like they were inhuman with their flawless appearances. What the hell was going on? Akino hummed. Your other might be onto something with Grafia-sama looking like she could be Kakashi-san's sister, she giggled. Maybe. We don't look that inhuman, do we? Rias asked, staring at her friends before looking at the blonde for an answer. Naruto paused for a bit before shrugging. Well, you guys do look really good, but I don't know if I'd call you all inhuman, he answered. Akino smiled, giving him a wink for the compliment, while Rias and Kaneko were still wondering if they really did look inhuman. You can stop pretending now, Naruto-kun, the younger of the two red-headed men said calmly while smiling at him. That caused a bit of a surprise to pass through the younger group. The white-haired girl also woke up with the man's voice. What do you mean, Oni-sama? Rias asked Surzex as he told Naruto to stop pretending to sleep. Surely she would have noticed. Surzex and the others weren't even in the same room. I placed a seal on him that would alert us when he woke up, Surzex said, answering both Rias's asked and unasked question. The moment he regained consciousness, we came to meet with him. Huh? Naruto interrupted, conveying his surprise. You guys have a seal for stuff like that in your world? Rias nodded slowly. I don't know too much about them myself, but my brother does. There is probably a seal like that somewhere in our world too. Most likely the interrogators from your village has them. Kurama chimed in as Naruto hummed in interest at the use of the technique. He smiled kindly at the blonde boy who now was sitting up and staring wide eyes at the man. At least until his eyes narrowed at the mention of him putting a seal on him somewhere. His hand shot to where they had seen that curious pouch earlier, and again his eyes widened before he sprung from the bed into the far wall, stumbling slightly when he landed. It seemed he had still yet to fully recover. Rias was about to approach him, and try and calm him down when she saw him bite his thumb and drag it across his inner arm before snatching the kunai that appeared in a small poof of smoke. With that, his eyes hardened from bright blue pools to chilling icy daggers that flicked back and forth across the room, assessing the danger. Akino looked over at Naruto and shook her head. Already being so hostile to us after we saved you, Naruto? She teased him, giggling when he deadpanned at her. I can't blame my other self. Hearing you have a seal planted on you after waking up in an unknown place isn't really the first thing you want to hear, you know, the blonde grumbled, crossing his arms with a huff. Rias winced hearing that. That's true. But I think it won't turn out too bad in the end, even if your other version thinks we're hostile at first. She finished with a smile. Kaneko nodded in agreement. Yes, Kurama even said that Surzex-sama and the others saved you, remember? She reminded them, knowing it wouldn't turn out too bad. It's alright, Naruto-kun, you don't need to be afraid, we are the ones who have been caring for you. Venelina said, trying her best to show him they meant no harm. Who are you and how do you know my name? No, first where is the seal you placed on me? Naruto growled out quietly. Just calm down, Naruto, and we can explain. Surzex tried, but Naruto simply glared at him. Explain and I can calm down, now where is it? He fired back, causing Surzex to chuckle slightly at the boy throwing his words back like that while tapping the back of his neck. Shocking the room, a second Naruto appeared in a poof of smoke and moved behind the first before a faint glow appeared on the first neck and the second disappeared once again. Oh, you can make clones, Akino stated, impressed at the technique. Kaneko narrowed her eyes slightly at the clone, remembering her sister's illusion technique that showed copies of herself. That wasn't an illusion, she stated in confusion, looking at her fellow chakra user for an explanation. Well yeah, they're real, Naruto responded, catching them off guard. They're actually real? Rias asked in astonishment. A technique like that sounded just amazing to her. She knew of the illusion clones, having heard of them from Kaneko, but this was even better. Naruto nodded with a proud smile. Yep, it's one of my signature techniques and one of the best ones too. Rias let out a jealous whine. I wish I had something like that. She mumbled with a pout as Akino patted her back before going back to reading. Now answer my questions, Naruto said, quietly, the growl gone but his defensive stance remaining. It struck some of them as odd to see a 12-year-old acting like a paranoid warrior, but the elder generation quickly overcame that, and Surzex took a tentative step forward. Oh yeah, something like that would probably be seen as weird in you guys' world. We have prodigies in our world, but even then, most of them live their life like normal humans with a simple childhood, Rias explained. Naruto grimaced as he thought about his own world, mostly being reminded how even kids were sent to the battlefield during the war. It made him realize how wild his world was. Our world is really fucked up, Kurama snorted. That's an understatement. Alright, where to start? Surzex asked himself mostly. By now Rias had gathered her peerage and pulled back behind her parents and Graphia. My name, why do you know my name? Why can I only sense chakra from the girl with white hair? His eyes widened a bit with his second question, as it seemed that was mostly a question for himself than the group before him. Why did you say it out loud then? Kaneko asked him. I sometimes blurt out things before I think about them, he admitted with a shrug. It came in handy sometimes, but most people said he was too blunt. He didn't really care all that much about it. You get in a lot of trouble, don't you? Rias asked rhetorically. I'm sure he does with what we've seen and been told so far, Akino added. Naruto laughed unsurely at her statement, not knowing what exactly she thought as she said those words with that sadistic smile of hers. God knows what was going on in her head. He paused at that thought. Actually, since she's a devil, would God know? He wondered to himself. It was a question he would have to ask later as the reading continued. Naruto-kun, when Graphia here healed you, we decided to try and figure out what had happened to cause you such terrible injuries. We looked at some of your memories. Naruto's eyes shot wide in fear at that. If they looked at his memories, then they knew everything, the truth about his tenant, his innermost thoughts, everything. He suddenly felt at more of a disadvantage than when he fought Gaara. Hold on, Naruto interrupted them. When they said everything, does that mean everything literally? Rias hummed in thought. I think so. She finished somewhat unsurely. The process was something she knew about. They could even erase memories as she had done it beforehand on some humans, but viewing memories wasn't something she had tried before. They probably only viewed what was necessary and would not delve into them too much. Kaneko added her own 2 cents. Naruto leaned back. I just asked because if they saw everything, then they would have seen my parents too. My other might ask them about it, he stated offhandedly. His eyes seemed unfocused for a moment, as if his mind was briefly somewhere else before he refocused, and suddenly resealed the knife. That perked Surzek's interest as to what had just changed so suddenly. For the moment, though he was just glad the ice chips the boy sported for eyes had softened back into their deep calm blues. The group watched as if with a mind of their own. His tail stopped twitching in agitation, and seemed to wrap protectively around Naruto's thin small frame. It looked almost as if he was trying to comfort himself, though the brief flicker of surprise in his eyes at the sight of the tails amused the reigning Lucifer. You know, I don't think I'll ever get used to seeing myself with tails. They don't look that bad, Akino told him, with the other 2 devils agreeing. Though, Naruto shook his head, disagreeing with them. To you guys maybe? You've had tails before because of me. How is it weird now? Kurama chimed in with his question. That's different. Those were chakra tails. These are actual tails, you know, like fur and all. He was sure it felt really weird. He was kind of glad he didn't get real tails from Kurama. He could already imagine how much worse his childhood would have been if it was the case. Besides, you should be on my side. You saw your other self call me a kid, remember? Naruto reminded his partner, whose scowl returned upon the memory coming back. How his other self actually said that was beyond him. I am sorry, I overreacted. Thank you for everything you have done for me. I don't have much, but if I can I will repay you however I can. A brief glint ran through Surzek's eyes as he glanced toward his sister, and her peerage near the door of the room. I'm sure we will think of something, Naruto-kun. In the meantime, perhaps you would like a little bit of an explanation and introduction? It was rhetorical, but still Naruto nodded and smiled faintly as he offered him a chair. I'll start. I am Surzek's Lucifer, formerly Gremory. This is my wife Graphia Lucifuge. She is also the queen of my peerage. I know that term confuses you, but I will explain it in a moment. This is my father Ziaticus Gremory, patriarch of the Gremory clan, and my mother Venelina Gremory, formerly of the Bale clan. As you can probably guess, she is the matriarch of the Gremory. Surzek explained, gesturing to each one as he introduced them. Each of them greeted Naruto with a faint smile and head nod. Now, this here is my younger sister Rias Gremory. It would have been impossible to mistake which girl was Surzek's sister, as Rias looked much like a younger female version of him. The heiress to our family and clan, and this is her peerage. Her queen Akino Himejima. He gestured toward the overly developed ravenet with purple eyes. Her knight, Kiba Yudo. He nodded to the blonde boy who bowed his head with a small friendly smile. And last but not least, Kaneko Tuju, her rook. He pointed to the white-haired girl who somehow no longer sported the cute white cat ears on her head. Turning towards, Naruto asked, is that everyone from your peerage? Since she was much older now, he figured more people might have joined compared to what he saw on the screen. Rias shook her head. No, there is one more person. Where is he? Rias sighed and hesitated for a bit. It's complicated. Ah, Naruto muttered in understanding. Yeah, I'll explain it another time. It's very nice to meet you all. So what now? He couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable. As much as he desired it, Naruto had little real social interaction to draw on in this situation. His closest situation would be with Team 7, and that usually consisted of Sakura talking non-stop, Kakashi pointedly ignoring them, and Sasuke responding in primarily grunts and scowls. Actually, perhaps it is best if you ate something. No doubt you are starving. I'm sure my parents and Graphia would be happy to guide you to the dining room. You wouldn't mind, would you all? Surzek asked the others. Graphia immediately nodded and walked over to Naruto and began guiding him away, with the elder Gremory generation following close behind. That's an easy way to get me to listen, Naruto said, smiling. He couldn't help it. Food was just too good of an offer to refuse, especially after a battle like the one his other had gone through. Akino giggled. Just like everyone else. Speaking of food, I am somewhat hungry, Ria said, clutching her stomach as she felt it rumble a bit from the hunger. On cue, their couches started moving into a different formation, surprising them. Seconds later, a table conjured in front of them with plates of food and snacks on them. Talk about timing, Kaneko muttered before she quickly scooped up some of the sweets to herself and began munching on them. The others chuckled at her behavior before taking some for themselves. Come on, Akino, continue reading. Rias urged her as she opened up her bag of chips. Oni-sama, did you want to talk with us about something? I think we would like to stay near him to watch over him till he finishes recovering, Rias said, wanting to stay near the interesting blonde. Surzek looked at her and remained silent for a moment before a small smile appeared on his face. He tucked his hand into his pocket inside his suit jacket and withdrew a unique-looking rook piece from an apparent peerage set. The piece was obviously a rook, but it was also obviously a mutation piece. Something that was rare, and usually only a single piece per set became a mutation. This specific piece twisted upward from its base, causing the column-like lines to twist around the piece. At the top of the piece where the battlements would be instead, the piece sported pointed blade-like protrusions like miniaturized kunai in shape. Mutation piece? Naruto turned to the devils after finishing one of his chicken legs. They're a special type of pieces of the evil pieces. They're very rare too, and very few devils have them. Rias explained simply. I'm guessing Ni-sama is giving it to me so I can revive you. Most likely, he thinks my other pieces won't be good enough. Naruto hummed in interest. That was good to know. So they're used when normal pieces aren't enough, huh? He said, quite proud of the fact that even a younger version of himself was that powerful for a piece like that to be used. That's pretty much it. So my other self won't only be a yukai but a devil too? Correct. Naruto never thought anything like that would ever happen to him. The multiverse was really weird in his opinion. Rias, summon your remaining rook piece. Blinking for a moment, Rias did as commanded and held up her ordinary rook piece for her brother. Rias, your birthday is coming up anyway, so as part of your gift I'm exchanging your rook for this one. He took her rook and exchanged the mutated piece for it. Instantly the two pieces changed colors as the new rook took on her crimson red. This rook is obviously a mutation piece, Rias. It is arguably one of the most potent pieces I have seen come off the line. Ajuka told me that due to its status it was worth more than twice a rook's usual pawn count, though even he is unsure of its true value. He did mention, however, that should someone that theoretically had a larger reserve of power than its bearer willfully agree to be reincarnated with it, that it could succeed in doing such a thing. This is a gift to you, Rias, an important one, so whether you use it today, tomorrow, or never is really up to you. Surzek stressed today and tomorrow when he spoke to such a degree that Rias' eyebrow began to twitch in annoyance, and Akino had to stifle her giggles at the embarrassing scene. As if it wasn't already obvious what he was trying to convey to her. Kiba even let loose a sheepish chuckle at the awkward scene, while Kaniko's flat stare seemed to somehow become even flatter than she previously had. He can't be more obvious with what he is saying, Kurama stated. He seems like a good brother if he is willing to trade such an important piece with his sister just like that. Naruto always liked seeing that. It made him wish that he also had a brother growing up. Oh my, that is quite a powerful piece you got there, Bucho. Akino had an impressed look at the information about the piece. It really is. Rias could already see how useful a piece like that would be. I'll have to ask if Nisama really does have a piece like that. It would certainly help to have a piece like that with her. Thank you, Oniai-sama. I'll try to find someone worthy of it. I had thought more along the lines of a bishop, in all honesty, being as Kitsune yokai are known to use large amounts of magically or chakra-based abilities, so why a rook? Rias initially began with a bland tone before switching to one of confusion over her brother's choice in peace. Well, you will undoubtedly find that while our new friend has plenty of powerful abilities in regards to his chakra, he will undoubtedly fit best in the role of a rook. Trust me, he said with a mischievous grin at dangling information about her prospective peerage member before her. This of course caused her eyebrow to once again begin to twitch in annoyance. What does that mean? Kaniko asked out loudly what her master's brother was hinting at. As they didn't know the answer, they turned to the only person they thought had won. Naruto watched them turn to look at him as he blinked. What? He asked. Well, would you know what he means by that? Nope. Naruto was so quick to answer that the devil's nearly face faltered at how fast he did so. It made him laugh. I guess we'll find out as we read further. He was interested too to know what exactly the man meant by that. I wonder how exactly this evil peace system works? It was quite an interesting system that he hadn't seen before. It was worth looking into. He was sure someone like Orochimaru would kill to know about it. Very well, I'm sure you know best, she said through clenched teeth. She might be a very compassionate girl, but part of compassion was passion, and Rias was still a practical princess who did not like being denied learning things about something that captured her interest. Rias pouted at the description used for her in the story. While it was right, and she was still the same, she liked to think she had mellowed out of that sort of behavior over the years she had come to live in Ko. Akino patted her best friend's back in mock sympathy before her hand was swatted away by the redhead, only causing the half-fallen angel to giggle at her. Excellent, the Crimson Satan chirped. Now let's go join our guest in the dining room. What do you say? His mood had dropped all seriousness and returned to the usually overly happy manner Rias was used to when she had to deal with her brother, Naruto. Naruto had come to one very important conclusion that would either help or hinder his new future in this world. The food was delicious, which was a damn good thing considering Kyuubi had reminded him once again that the chances of his ever getting back home were between not a chance and not a chance in hell. Shaking that thought from his head, Naruto returned his focus on the delicious food. Sure, it was a fact that besides Ichiraka, Naruto rarely got decent hot meals. Though Tsunami back in Wave Country had made delicious food as well, he had never had something like this though. It was a regular feast. Foods he couldn't even imagine, dishes he couldn't get enough of. So shoving everything in his mind to the side for now, Naruto continued to dive in. It took several minutes before he realized he was being stared at. You guys seriously don't have food like that in your world? Akino asked, a bit surprised at that fact. Of all the things, food was not something she had thought would be that different when their worlds were compared. Naruto slowly nodded. Yeah, some of the stuff shown and even here on the table aren't in our world, he replied, much to their surprise. You poor souls, Kaniko muttered with a sympathetic shake of her head. To think they never tasted the diverse amounts of sweets out there. She shuddered to think what life would be like without her favorite food. Naruto shrugged off their looks. He didn't really see the big deal in it. Sure, the food here was incredibly delicious, and if he had the chance to take the recipe with him for it, he would, especially what they called pizza, but he was content with the food back home. Upon that realization he came to an abrupt stop and turned to look at the three that had led him into the room and gaggle of servants behind them all blinking olishly at what they had just witnessed. A boy his size putting away as much food as he had would have shocked anyone. What was more surprising though was the speed at which he had done that. Still, while his manners definitely needed work, he didn't make a mess. Didn't spill a drop. Cleaned each plate he had like it was his last. Having watched the way he ate, like he would never see food again, sent the motherly instinct of both Grafia and Venelina into overdrive as they recalled some of the memories they had seen from his childhood. Holy shit, how many servants do you guys have? Naruto asked upon seeing the number of servants in the scene. The devils deadpanned at him as if to say, that's what surprises you of the scene. To them, the piles and piles of plates that Naruto had next to him were what had caught them off guard. They hadn't seen someone eat that much, and it was by a kid that was only around the age of 12 to 13. Nonetheless, Rias answered his question. I don't know the exact number. I never counted. Man, I've never seen so many maids and butlers for one family, Naruto said with a shake of his head in disbelief. He had visited daimyos and many rich people before, who all had butlers and maids but not the amount that the Gremory family had at their disposal. How you didn't spill anything is beyond me, Kaneko mumbled. Naruto-kun, is it all to your liking? Venalina asked, trying to break the staring contest between their group and the boy. Naruto swallowed the mouthful of chicken he had and wiped his mouth roughly with a napkin. His bright blue eyes seemed to sparkle with joy the whole time. It's delicious. Some of these things I've never even seen before, and it's all so delicious and I've never been able to eat so much good food. Thank you, Venalina-sama. He blushed toward the end as he noticed a large stack of empty plates he had cleaned himself. Ah, you're embarrassed by it. How cute of you. Akino cooed at the blonde, who laughed once he saw Akino giving him a wink. No teasing, Akino. Rias reprimanded her, though the Ravenite simply shrugged off her words, with the redhead continuing to reprimand her. Kaneko and Naruto were left to watch the two go back and forth between each other while Naruto turned to look at the smaller girl. This happens often? He asked. Kaneko nodded. It's completely normal. Akino-senpai likes riling up people. She explained before offering Naruto one of her snacks. Oh, thanks, Naruto said, taking it from her and tasting it. Damn, that's pretty good. He'd have to take some of the things with him back home with how tasty they were. This one's really good. Kaneko nodded, understanding him completely as she saw him eat up the snack very quickly before she presented him with another one. Here, try this one. Thankfully, the two older devils had stopped their back forth with Rias huffing and simply going back to eating as Akino giggled at her friend's behavior before resuming her reading. I'm very glad you like it. Please eat till you are all full, okay? If it was possible, the bright smile and sparkling eyes he had flashed her way earlier doubled in intensity as he dove back in for more. With Naruto back to focusing on his meal, it was no real surprise that when Surzex, Rias, and her peerage entered, he missed them entirely. The new entries to the dining room came to a standstill in shock at the sight of the boy inhaling food on their arrival. So most of the dinner went on without much said. Zeoticus nearly began to try and teach Naruto some better mealtime etiquette before the sudden stomp on his foot by his wife told him to wait until another time. Venalina couldn't help but remember the innumerable nights she had seen in Naruto's memory where he had been forced to go to sleep with an aching stomach, still hungry from barely eating enough food to survive. It was expected that he would eat like it was his last meal. Perhaps subconsciously he thought it was. The mood dampened somewhat as those lines were read aloud. Ria's heart went out to the blonde as she never imagined how it would feel to be in a situation like that. It made her shudder even thinking about having to live alone from the age of 4 on her lonesome without any supervision, with the people from her home hating her too. Taking a quick peek at the blonde, she saw that he seemed to have a neutral expression on his face. She couldn't pick up on what he was thinking and didn't really know what to say at the moment, opting to stay silent instead. Akino quickly sent Naruto an understanding look as she had gone through loneliness after losing her mother too. While she had her clan with her, it was still quite a bad experience with how they treated her. Meanwhile, Kaneko frowned a bit and offered the Naruto in the room another one of her snacks, much to the other two devils' surprise, while the blonde took and offered the yokai a smile in return. That's surprising. Both Rias and Akino thought. It seemed like Kaneko had already warmed up to the ninja. Eventually the awkward meal came to a close, not that Naruto himself had actually noticed the awkwardness so embedded in his feast that he failed to pay attention to anything else. Now once again drowsy, Rias and most of the other female devils couldn't help but swoon slightly at the adorable sight of the tired little Kitsune fighting to stay awake. The boy was nearly falling from his chair as he began to nod off. It's always people from outside the village who found you cute and liked you a lot more. Kurama pointed out. You do have a point. Naruto responded mentally, thinking of all the times they went on missions and how the people treated him, unlike the people at your home. Naruto paused his thoughts and frowned a bit. Well, it's different now. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Naruto sighed at Kurama's words. He couldn't really refute his partner's words as the village had slowly changed their opinion of him and fully did so after the pain attack. It still annoyed Kurama that the majority changed after Naruto saved them from pain. Naruto-kun, I need you to wake up, we have some important things to discuss. Surzex said gently as he nudged the tired boy. Naruto rubbed the tiredness from his eyes and nodded to the devil when he was back to being fully aware. Surzex smiled again before raising an eyebrow with a questioning look toward Rias. After getting a nod to his silent question, he stepped back and allowed the girl to step forward. Is this the time when my other is most likely gonna change into a devil? The response he got was a nod from all 3 devils in the room. So how does it work then? He asked interestedly. Akino, sensing an opportunity to have a bit of fun, quickly beat the other 2 into giving an answer. Well, it starts out by you being taken to a secluded spot where you will be put in a pot and burned alive so your human body is gone and you can be reborn. Then we all pray to the Supreme Devil and use the evil peace system to have the person be reborn as a devil. She said, her smile only growing at Naruto's aghast look. What? Rias sighed whilst Kaneko shook her head. Akino burst into laughter at the reaction. That is not true. Sending Akino her best reprimanding glare, Rias continued, "It's not even close to how it's done. It's really simple. You just lay down, and I'll hover the piece over you while chanting, and it'll sink into the body. That's all. There is no pain, no boiling alive or praying to a supreme devil," she explained quickly. "Really?" Rias nodded as Naruto let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He didn't want his other version to be in pain in the process. He was sure to send Akino a deadpan look for what she tried pulling on him and promised he would get back at her one way. "Naruto, I know you are probably confused a little bit with what's going on, but I thought that maybe you would like to join my family?" With that, Naruto's attention narrowed to the red-headed girl before him. Fully awake in an instant. "Your family?" he asked, more than a little confused by what she was actually asking him about. However, 1,000 thoughts ran through his mind in that instant, and his voice came out too quiet for the majority of the room to even catch. Yes, you see, we are devils, and devils have a way of making others devils by binding them to themselves with these pieces," Rias explained as she summoned the unique rook piece into her hand and held it up for him to see. "You would become a devil too, and technically be my servant, but you would be a part of my peerage, like a part of my family. You would live a really long time, thousands of years roughly, and you could be with us. I would do everything I can to take care of you and make sure you are happy, just like with Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko." Naruto was dumbstruck briefly by that. She was asking him to become one of them. To become a part of her family. Noon had ever said anything even remotely like that to him before. The closest was Konoha Maru, and his friends calling him Big Brother. Wait, what? Thousands of years? Naruto's mouth was open in surprise at that. That was a part he certainly didn't know about. That would mean that everyone he knew would be dead while he would continue to live. It's not like you can see the others from home in that universe anyway. Kurama brought up the fact as Naruto wasn't sure of what to say. Besides, I'll be there too. That's true. You would be there all the time, Naruto thought, smiling at the prospect. Though it hurt to know that a version of him would never meet his friends back at home again, it was still good to know that Kurama was with him and the fact that he had met good people in the Gremory family. "Yes, we devils live for a long time, and like my other said, we Gremorys treat our peerage members as our family members," Rias stated, proud of the manner her family treated their peerage members. "I'm sure my other will give you time to think about the offer if that part doesn't sound good to you," she quickly added on, thinking the blonde's counterpart wouldn't like living for that long. "I can't speak for him, but I have a feeling he'll take the offer," Naruto said with a shrug. "You should take the offer, Kit. There is no telling what the villagers would do to you even if you could get back to Konoha for not bringing that damned Uchiha." Naruto flinched slightly at the words of Kyubi that filled his head. He ran his hand through his blonde hair with a sigh. Naruto frowned at those words. "Come on. They wouldn't be that stupid to blame me or even do something to me for not being able to bring him back." Kurama didn't respond, as the blonde was completely right. They wouldn't do anything to the biggest weapon of their village, as it would be foolish. "My other most likely said that to sway you and accept the offer." "Yeah, I figured, the other you is manipulating other me," Naruto said with heat in his voice. He understood why Kurama was doing it, and couldn't blame him for doing so. "But what if they are actually waiting for me back home, Kyubi? I mean, Kakashi-sensei tried to stop me from being taken, right?" Naruto responded to the fox in his mind, his small list of precious people from Konoha flitting through his head. "Don't be a fool. The people of Konoha only see you as a weapon, and I will not have a member of the Kitsune clan, even one as unworthy as yourself, be used in such a way," the beast growled out. That thought hurt Naruto, but honestly he couldn't refute it. After all, hadn't that been awfully close to what Hokage had told him when he asked what he wanted to be the first time? "He looks like a real softy. Caring for everyone from his clan, no matter what." Akino cooed out loud. Kurama deadpanned at that inside the seal. "The Kitsune clan doesn't even exist. I don't get any of this bullshit," he said with a roll of his eyes. Naruto chuckled. "It really irritates you to see your other calling me a kid and talking about this Kitsune clan, huh?" He teased his friend, who grunted in annoyance but didn't reply, knowing it was simply bait for him. "Someone like you, Naruto, can never not be a shinobi of the village. I'm sorry, but you simply must become one." The old raspy voice rang out in his head and Naruto bit his lip before clenching his eyes closed and taking a breath to clear his thoughts. "So you were forced to become a ninja?" Naruto shook his head. "Nah, I wanted to become one. The old man didn't say that to me though. He did encourage me after I told him I wanted to become one." "Alright. I don't really think I can go home anyway," he said. "At least not without being treated even more like dirt than the first time," he thought somberly. Rias, Akino, and even Kaneko had quite big smiles on their faces at knowing the other version of Naruto had joined their small family. It was good to see the blonde having someone close to him after living a tragic life like that for so long. Rias smiled brightly and practically dragged him out of the room and toward another to perform the ritual. Naruto barely managed to get his feet under him so that her dragging him wasn't in the literal sense. Once they were in the small sitting room she had chosen to use, Rias made him lay back on one of the couches before she placed the rook piece over his chest. "So it really is like how you said it," Naruto mused out loud. "What, you doubted me?" Rias asked with a pout as she crossed her arms. Laughing at her attitude, Naruto replied, I wouldn't dare. There was a cheeky smile on his face as he said that. Ria's pout became more pronounced. And here I thought you trusted me. She huffed, and looked away from him. Era Bucho, is someone angry their favorite blonde didn't believe her? Akino, as usual, had to take advantage of the moment to tease her best friend. Akino! Rias whined at her with red cheeks at the favorite blonde part. Oh really? I'm your favorite blonde already, Rias? Naruto joined Akino in teasing the redhead while Akino's eyes glinted in surprise before winking at her fellow teaser. Not you too, internally Kyubi grinned broadly. With this his new kit would be well on his way to becoming a power to be proud of. That thought caused the grin to slide off his face as a frustrated scowl graced his appearance instead. The odd new paternal feeling he seemed to have grown in regard to his jailer when the boy underwent his changes confused, worried, and annoyed him. Most of all though it intrigued him. He had never felt this way before. Even with how small the emotion seemed it was still vibrant and new, and the fox was surprised by his own eagerness to further explore it. He had to wonder what exactly caused such a change. The easiest assumption had to do with the fact that the boy was now more closely tied to him than before. When Naruto had been in Kushina's womb, his chakra had influenced the boy just as his mother and father's had, leading to those whisker marks on his cheeks developing. Now though he had golden tails and ears with the tips bleeding to red, a red that matched his own fur color precisely. It was almost as if their brief blending had made Naruto into his. Odd new paternal feelings, huh? Naruto had a huge grin as he mentally repeated those to Kurama. Shut up. Kurama grouched at the blonde, whose grin turned into full-blown laughter. I'm calling it now. He's gonna be some sort of tsundere with those new feelings. Rias stated confidently. What's that? Naruto asked, scratching his head in confusion, while his partner was the same. Rias looked a bit surprised at first but quickly got over it, remembering Naruto's world. It means that he acts cold but is really a softer. Naruto laughed out loud at the description, while Kurama scowled at being called that. They're not lying, you know. Kurama rolled his eyes and simply lay down on his head, not willing to fall for another bait. Kurama-san does seem to be a bit like that. Akino agreed with her best friend's prediction, much to the Jinchuriki's amusement. Shaking off that though he decided to focus on the even newer changes occurring to his prison's body. The influx of power, small as it was compared to his own, caused the grin to return to his maw. The power was dark, though not evil, and like when they were brought to this world, Naruto's body changed slightly. He seemed to gain a second chakra network, except it didn't carry chakra and acted more like a simple reservoir of energy. He also seemed to now have wings. That was curious. The Kyubi wondered idly what it would be like to fly, even if he would be experiencing it from inside his prison. You can fly, though, Naruto reminded him. I can't do it by myself, Kurama replied with slight annoyance at the fact that he couldn't do so. All his powers, and it still couldn't allow him to fly. It was a bit annoying. Oh yeah? It must feel really annoying to be inside a prison like that, Kaneko said with a frown. She felt bad for the tailed beast seeing the state he was in. Understatement, Naruto added, not liking how tailed beasts had been treated throughout the centuries. It was no wonder they didn't like humans all that much. Noticing the changes seemed to be finishing, Kyubi lay his head back down and drifted off to sleep. Things had gotten better and more interesting for his container than ever before. Perhaps it was time for a new start with the boy. Then again it was rather fun for the fox to rile the brat up and terrify him of his power by giving him nightmares of him losing control. He can do that. Ria's tone was full of surprise and fear at the prospect of constant torture of nightmares such as that. No? Naruto stated unsurely after a second of thought. Can you? Naruto asked quickly but got no reply. Kurama. Kurama? Kurama! Inside the seal, the fox had an amused smile at Naruto's increasing worry about the fact that he could possibly do that. He couldn't, but there was no need for his friend to know that at the moment. It was too much fun for him. Really only time would eventually tell whether or not the boy would end up worth putting effort into guiding. If he was, the fox smirked at the possibilities in this new world. As they said, the sky was the limit, and now they could even fly, so honestly the sky had already fallen to the wayside. Tsunade. Ooh, back to the ninja world. Ria's excitement was quite easy to pick up on as the image in front of them shifted to one of Tsunade at her desk in the Hokage Tower. Your ninja obsession is showing, Bucho. Kaneko's monotone voice reached Ria's ears, which turned red because of the words she said. I'm not obsessed, she denied with a huff. I just think it's cool. Kaneko simply shook her head at the denial and looked at Naruto. You have to be careful around her. Now that she knows you're a ninja, it won't take long for her to jump you. Ria scoffed in shock at what her rook said. Kaneko! She shouted in embarrassment as she shrunk in her seat, hearing Akino giggling in joy while Naruto gave her an interested look with a raised brow. Read, Akino! Read! Akino hummed, cupping her ear. I'm sorry, what was that, Bucho? You agree with Kaneko-chan's words. Ria's eyes narrowed, and she did her best to glare at her two friends, though her red and embarrassed face completely diminished its effect. I'm not hearing a denial, Bucho. Akino continued. God, kill me! Ria's thought before a surge of pain racked through her head from the word God. Thankfully, she was saved from further embarrassment by Akino, who had enough fun and started reading again. The picture on Tsunade's desk always seemed to follow her with its eyes. Drunk or sober, the boy seemed to look at only her. That was enough to usually make her scoff and go about her business, but in her weaker moments Tsunade couldn't help but lock gazes with the little blonde she had returned to Konoha for. No matter what some villagers believed or what even she had convinced herself of, the only reason she came back to this damned village had been him. Now 3 years later, she sat here staring at a photo of him that was already outdated when he went missing. It was frustrating that the only pictures that seemed to exist of him were either his registration photo, teen picture, or the small handful of him enjoying time with the third Hokage. Granny Naruto mumbled sadly at seeing her like this. First, it was his sensei, and now his pseudo-mother figure. It hurt him to see them in a state like this. I really have to spend some good time with them when this is done, he vowed, knowing that it would be a fun time. 3 years later. Does time pass differently there? Rias asked in surprise that so much time had quickly passed by. I don't think so, Bicho. It might just be a simple time skip. Akino replied, giving her own theory. Kaneko nodded. I think so too. It's possible time might flow differently since it's another universe, but Akino is most likely right, and it probably is just a time skip. Naruto added his own opinion. I wonder what he looks like now. Probably like a copy of Minato at that age. She thought with a somber chuckle. For the last 3 years Tsunade had put any and all effort she could spare into searching for Naruto. She had even gone so far as to announce his true heritage a year into the search to try and bolster the efforts of her shinobi looking for him, though she still couldn't tell if she was disgusted or happy that had actually worked for a time. The fervor they used to look for him after that was more akin to a pack of wolves hunting prey. Nothing stood in their way. Still they had no clue where he was. They are really shallow, wow, Naruto sighed. He couldn't really deny that. It hurt to know that they only went way further after learning of his heritage. He wondered how his childhood would have been if his heritage had been revealed from the start. Well, at least they are trying now, I guess. Rias tried to point out the positive, though she agreed that it was indeed shallow of them to put in a lot more effort after the revelation. The only relatively good news for the situation was the fact that Naruto was most assuredly not dead. He remained unfaded on the Toad Summoner's contract, meaning only that he was in fact still alive. Further backing that up was Jiraiya's inside man with the Akatsuki relaying the knowledge that some newer member of the group, a previously unknown member named Tobi, had led the attempted capture and Kakashi's Kamui attack had somehow disrupted his teleport. When Tobi had arrived at the Akatsuki headquarters in Rain Country, he had been badly injured, but the report said the injuries looked more from combat than from a failed jutsu. Toad Summoner's contract? Kaneko asked, upon turning to Naruto for answers. It's a technique of mine. He explained simply and said no more than that, going into his own thoughts on the matter. I had forgotten about the toads for a bit there. They could have summoned him back, but seeing as 3 years had passed, and he wasn't there, it only meant they tried, and it didn't work out. Either the chakra cost is too high, or there is something blocking them. Kurama spoke out from the seal. Naruto nodded inwardly. That's gotta be it, but what is blocking it? He wondered. The toads lived in a different dimension, and could still summon others there and get summoned themselves, but they could not do so in this case. It was peculiar. At least they know you're alive and that Tobi has been pushed back. Yeah, I forgot Obito had come after me but was driven back. His eyes narrowed in thought. I think my other, at some point, will go back home. He theorized. The devils nodded. If it's possible for Obito to do it, and if Kakashi-san has the same ability, then they will most likely figure out how to get to our universe, Akino stated in a serious manner rather than her usual one. All of this information only made them want to find out about everything in the book a lot more now as the black-haired queen picked up on the other's excitement too, and read further. That meant perhaps Naruto had been rescued by someone. Or had simply been captured by someone else. Either way, he was indeed alive somewhere. The trick was just finding where. Reverse summoning him hadn't worked, and that meant either some sort of barrier was preventing them, or he was so far that the chakra cost was simply too much to accomplish the task. That seemed ridiculous though, as the elder toads could summon to and from practically everywhere on the planet. They had played once with the idea of using Kakashi's Kamui to try and follow Naruto's path. However, that was quickly scrapped when they discovered his Kamui appeared to be a one-way ticket at its current state. Until he mastered the ability, no one would be using Kakashi's Kamui for anything, and sadly that path was hitting a roadblock. 3 years passed, and Kakashi-sensei could use Kamui way earlier than in our world there, meaning after those years, he could be very close to mastering the technique, which means they might soon be able to come to our world and find you. Kaneko finished it for him. Ria's eyes glinted in glee at the prospect of ninjas visiting their world and perhaps her also being able to visit the place too. I do wonder how they will react to our world, she thought out loud. Depends on who they send. Naruto answered, as it really did depend on the person they sent. She was thankfully pulled from her thoughts on the boy by a soft knock on her door before the door was shoved open and Shizen stumbled in with the 3 irate elders following in behind her. Regaining her balance, Shizen made her way around the desk to stand by Tsunade's side while straightening her disheveled clothing from the surprisingly rough old woman. Naruto groaned in annoyance, catching the devil's attention. Not them. Who are they? With a sigh, the blonde went to answer. They're advisors for the Hokage. Judging by your tone, they're not really good ones, Rias asked sympathetically, getting a nod. Yeah, we have elders of ours too, and they're despicable, she stated with a scowl. She never really liked them and didn't understand how her brother put up with them. I'm sorry, Lady Tsunade, they refused to wait for me to notify you of their arrival, Shizen said with a glare toward the trio while being completely ignored. It's fine, Shizen. What can I do for you honored elders today? Tsunade asked with a sarcastic tone. Honestly, the elders weren't horrible. Well, Danzo was pretty horrible, but Hamura and Koharu were simply prone to overassert their opinions when Tsunade was making decisions. All three were well and truly loyal to the village. The only issue between herself and them was the conflicting definition of the village. Danzo is amongst them too? Akino asked of Naruto. Nodding, the Uzumaki responded, pointing at the image presented to them, more specifically to one of the elders in it. Yeah, he's the guy in bandages with the cane in his hand. The devils analyzed the man keenly, their eyes drawn to the bandages around his eyes and the robe concealing his right arm. What happened to his eyes and his arm? They asked curiously. Naruto grimaced at the question, which the devils quickly picked up on. Complicated? Naruto offered a confirming nod in return. Very much so, he responded. The stuff with the Uchiha massacre and Danzo's part in it was not something he was going to discuss here with them. For Koharu and Hamura, it was not too far departed from her own mentality. However, they were simply too jaded in their old age. Too willing to sacrifice the one for the many. That wasn't to say they were heartless, again simply too jaded. They should have been retired a decade ago, but their input was still needed from time to time, as annoying as they could be. They should never have been listened to. The only thing they bring is more chaos. Kurama voiced out with an eye roll. Those old crones were one of the humans he would always hate no matter what. Yeah, can't expect anything else from those old heads. Naruto stated in agreement. Tsunade was a jaded individual herself. Naruto and Jiraiya had dragged her to the position of Hokage, practically kicking and screaming. She still held on to her grandfather and granduncle's ideals of treating the village like a family. Her sensei had been Hiruzen Sarutobi after all, and the man had reigned for so long as Hokage and kept to the ideal of the village as family for so long that entire generations had grown to adulthood seeing him as their own grandfather. In her own team's case, he had practically replaced their fathers as well. Danzo lastly was the paramount patriot. To him, Konoha was an unassailable ideal, one which had to be protected by any means necessary, no matter the sacrifices. Sadly, his way of thinking had a major flaw in that he was more than willing to sacrifice everyone in the village to protect the idea of the village over the people that composed it. His work with his root program, taking children and turning them into emotionless drones, or more fitting, broken minds capable of performing any action if ordered, to by him or the Hokage. His foundation was supposed to be disbanded, but everyone in the room knew that was not the case. The revelation was quite disturbing to the devils, and that was saying something, as they were quite literally devils who were always depicted as some sort of evil. Why didn't your leader stop him from doing that? Akino asked the blonde. If it was up to her, it would have been stopped, and since Konoha was a dictatorship, they couldn't go against her word. Naruto frowned. I don't know what the old man was thinking when it came to solving the problems with Danzo and his root program, he answered truthfully. Thinking on it now made him realize that the third was quite pathetic in how he handled matters concerning Danzo and all the schemes the bandaged man had. How can you call yourself the person with all the say in the village, but let stuff such as this happen while you know you can stop, but simply let it happen, while you also try to treat the people in your village as a family? Kaneko scoffed at the stupidity of it all. Kaneko! Rias raised her voice a bit, reprimanding her rook for insulting their new friend's predecessor. She turned to the latter and gave him an apologetic look, about to also voice her apology, but Naruto simply stopped her before she could. It's alright. I can understand where she is coming from. In fact, I agree with what she said, he said, surprising the devils a bit. As a kid, I didn't really understand much of it and looked up to the old man for some time, but now, I can see how many mistakes he made and how it led to many bad things for the village. There wasn't any excuse the third had to. It was simply idiotic of him to allow all those stuff to happen. Kurama scoffed. At least you get it now. There was also the matter of how he handled your early life. Naruto did not respond, opting to stay silent and banish those thoughts from his mind. Kurama was indeed correct, but those times had passed, and he didn't care to think too much of them now. He couldn't exactly change any of it anyway. There was no point in getting mad over it now. It was that reason why the three splits in ideology argued so often and so fervently. Thankfully, only Tsunade had final say in matters concerning the village, and while she took her advisor's words into account, she still did what she herself felt was best for the village as her role dictated. Granny was a lot better when it came to dealing with those three. Naruto mused proudly. He had seen her deal with the two remaining advisors after Danzo's death, and it was quite an amusing sight, to say the least. She wasn't soft when it came to them like your previous leader was. Yeah, good thing too. A repeat of the same thing as the third, giving them too much leeway, was not needed. Certainly not now that things had calmed down a lot after the Fourth War compared to previous eras. Tsunade, we have still yet to receive your decision regarding our proposed plan of action, Kohara said with a tired sigh, knowing she was poking a bear. Tsunade's sudden flash of rage in her eyes confirmed that. Oh? Which proposed plan would that be, Elder Yutane? Tsunade asked with a decent amount of heat in her voice. Come Tsunade, surely you grow tired of this game of back and forth. You know as well as we do that with Naruto Uzumaki's passing Hamura said only to come up short at the sudden spike of killing intent. Don't let your emotions control you. You are a Hokage, not a bratty little girl, act like it. Danzo sneered, almost completely unaffected by the overwhelming presence of the blonde woman nearby. After a few brief moments Tsunade's killing intent withdrew, though her glare remained. Hamura sighed both in relief and annoyance. Tsunade, do you think we take pleasure in this situation? While I cannot say any of us were close to the boy, we did care for him. I remember when he was small and he would sit in Hiruzen's office to pass some of the time, and Koharu and I would be answering all sorts of questions about what it was like being a shinobi. Oh, that's different. It wasn't the same for you? Rias asked. Nope. I actually never met them until he stopped briefly to think back to when he met them for the first time. A couple of months ago, actually, he finished with a chuckle. Akino hummed in interest. It seemed that it was really true that in every universe, there were changes, no matter how small or big. It made her wonder what kind of changes there would be with her in other worlds. Perhaps in one of them, her mother might have survived, and they would continue living together. Makes me want to find out what else is different in my counterpart's life, Naruto voiced out loudly, which prompted Akino to snap out of her own thoughts and continue reading so they could find out. Koharu smiled faintly. It was true, either her or Hamura had been particularly close to the boy like Hiruzen had, however they had cared. It was hard not to. If he hadn't been burdened as a Jinchuriki and his family had survived, she would have felt the need to pressure the boy's family into placing him into a different path for life. Shinobi were at the core mercenary killers, and the thought of one such as Naruto doing that filled even her old heart with a bit of dread. Still, Naruto was son of the most prolific shinobi and kunoichi in modern Konoha history, and heir to one of the greatest shinobi clans to have graced their world. On top of that, he was a Jinchuriki. In reality, there was never going to be a choice in the matter. Jinchuriki or not, he would have had to become a shinobi and rebuild his clan, as was expected of one in his position. Akino had to pause after reading all that and whistle at seeing the lineage the blonde in the room had. That's quite a heritage you have there. Naruto smiled proudly at that fact. Growing up, he had always thought he was just some sort of random orphan that was hated, but now that he knew about his parents and his clan, it felt good to be a part of all that. It doesn't matter now, what has happened, and as tragic a loss as it is, we must move on. It has been 3 years, and Konoha has taken too many hits to its image of superiority over the years. First the Kyuubi attack, then Orochimaru's invasion and Hiruzen's death, then the loss of not only the last Uchiha clan heir, but the village Jinchuriki and heir to the Yellow Flash and Red Death. We cannot afford these kind of impacts against us. The weaker we seem, the less missions we will pull and our economy will stagnate. It's imperative we reclaim our prestige. Danzo spoke with his usual monotone. That's quite a lot to lose. Rias remarked with a wince at all the things that were listed. Yeah, Naruto said, feeling bad for them. While some of the things did happen to them in his world, too, it wasn't as bad as it was over there. He's gonna give a ridiculous solution, isn't he? Kaneko said, pointing at Danzo. Naruto laughed. Probably. What you three are suggesting could easily lead us into war. You know that, correct? One we might not win if we are seen as the aggressors. As it stands, our only allies are Suna, Kusa, and Taki, and your plan would turn Taki against us. Tsunade commented. Knew it. Kaneko mentally patted her back for the prediction. It was a bit obvious, Kaneko-chan. Akino brought her back down, causing the younger girl to send a flat look toward the Ravenite, who simply laughed at the reaction. Led into war, Naruto muttered with a grimace. The situation didn't look good at all. While Konoha was a powerhouse and a minor village wouldn't be a problem for them, it did mean that other hidden villages would feel threatened afterward, which meant they would most likely push back against, and a bigger war would break out. It caused him to sigh in disappointment at how fucked up his world was. How is invading another village after losing so much gonna help you? Rias asked, confused by the solution. It seemed delusional to her. It would only mean losing more soldiers and resources. Even if their opponent weren't as strong as them, casualties would be guaranteed on both sides. Danzo would probably not do something like that. While he hadn't personally met the man, he had heard enough to know what kind of person he was. I don't think that's what they're gonna do. I have a theory on what it might be, but I'm not completely sure about it. If he had figured Danzo right, then most likely, the Jinchuriki of Taki would be their target. Perhaps, but we must try. Besides, from the way it sounds, only the elders and village leader in Taki would defy us. The villagers treat their guardian worse than Konoha treated Naruto when he was here. It's to the point they have her living in a shack outside of their village's protection. From the sounds of it, the young head jonin of Taki would see our side of things if we simply press the point that it would be better for her to live here in Konoha. He is the girl's elder brother after all. Half-siblings though they may be, it seems they are close to one another. Koharu replied. Rias now understood what Naruto meant by what he said earlier. Her eyes narrowed slightly. If I understood what was said correctly, then does that mean that this Taki village has, what was the word again? Jinchuriki. She snapped her fingers. That's right, Jinchuriki, that village has one too? Naruto nodded. Yes, from what they're saying, it's clear that they want to bring her to Konoha after losing out on their own Jinchuriki. Do you know her? Kaneko asked him curiously. Naruto shook his head. No. I only met her once. I only later learned that she had it even worse than me. He finished with a sad tone. It would have been nice actually to get to know the girl. She seemed like a cheerful person from their only interaction, but it would be stupid of them to give away their strongest ninja, right? That's the thing, I don't know if they will or not. Looks like Granny and the others will use the fact that she gets treated way too badly to persuade them, but I don't know if that will be enough for them to lose out on a strong ninja of theirs. He responded with a shake of his head. It's fucked up how they're just handling this situation as if it's just trading cards. He thought bitterly at how Jinchurikis were treated. That got Tsunade to more begrudgingly support the idea. It would still be difficult to bargain with the leader of Taki, she knew that, but perhaps they were right, pushing the point of giving the girl in question a better life in Konoha, where at least the illusion of obscurity would shield her from the ostracization and abuses of the public unlike in her home seemed to be a better option. A myriad of conflicting thoughts and emotions ran through her mind at the concept before slowly she turned her attention back to the elders before her. If we do this, then the girl's burden must stay under wraps. I won't have them do to her what they did to Naruto, especially if our whole selling point is to save her from that treatment there. She relented with a sigh. Well, there's at least that if it does happen, Akino spoke, pointing out the positive in it. At least she won't be treated like dirt if it does work out. Naruto thought, being happy for Fu getting a chance at a better life in the other world. Till someone leaks something. Kurama's voice broke his thoughts. Don't ruin the moment. Naruto groaned at Kurama. Nodding, the three elders turned and left, leaving Tsunade with Shizen and the hidden Anbu as the only people remaining in the room. Turning to her apprentice, Tsunade was on the verge of tears but nibbled at her lip, looking at the girl she considered something between a younger sister and daughter. Perhaps they are right, Lady Tsunade. We can't find him and don't have any way to reach him if the worst-case scenario is true. It may be time to move on, Shizen said, biting back her own faint sob at the thought of never seeing the little blonde boy again. Perhaps. Tsunade said almost in a whisper. Shizen, and you four leave me, if I need you I will signal. The group all left, Shizen calmly walking out and the Anbu simply disappearing in a flicker of movement. So Tsunade was left looking at the outdated photo of Naruto as she often was. Once again, Naruto's heart was struck with pain because of the scene. I really have to do what I planned, he reminded himself. He hated seeing Tsunade or anyone else he was close to like this. Ku Academy was regarded as one of the premier educational institutions in Japan. It was a unique academy, playing host to grades from elementary to university ages. Its high standards and success rate of its alumni had led the academy to become one of the most well-respected schools not only in Japan but the world, and so it was from around the world that its student body came. Oh, it's back to our world. And it looks like you were right with the time skip. That sort of image bred a slight feeling of arrogance, or at least a consciousness of the importance of image. So it was little surprise to most when the student body took that idea of one's image a step further and applied it to each other. In Ku Academy, appearance was imperative, and those that stood out the most were even given epithets to reflect such a thing. All three devils sighed simultaneously at that, which Naruto noticed. That bad? He asked, a bit skeptical. Oh, you'll see how bad it is, Akino responded. Naruto hummed. There was the same thing in their world when it came to the academy, though it wasn't as bad as they were portraying it to be. They're annoying and stupid, Kaneko said with an eye roll. It made Naruto laugh at how she had said it, as it made him curious to see what exactly it was. There were those on both ends of the spectrum, of course. Thankfully, the majority of those with the nicknames were well liked and respected. Arguably the highest on this totem pole was the two great ladies of Kuo, Rias Gremory and Akino Himejima. Both girls and boys adored them. Both boys and girls lusted after them. None ever approached them though, except for their own clique of other well-standing students. Kiba Yuto, the Prince of Ko, was just as unapproachable as the two great ladies, though the majority of boys despised him largely out of jealousy, while he was universally adored by his female schoolmates. Then there was of course the youngest two of the group, considered the mascots for Ko Academy. Kaneko Tuja for the girls and Naruto Uzumaki for the boys. Though Naruto had gained his own separate personal nicknames beyond that of school mascot, most were a bit too on the nose for his liking though, and so Naruto punished those that gave him his nicknames rather regularly. Naruto looked extremely disappointed. Seriously, the mascot for the academy? He let out a scoff. That was one hell of a disappointment. His expectation was something much better. Though there was also the matter of their world's Kiba being called the prince. It didn't sit right with him, as he couldn't help but be reminded of his world's Kiba being called that. It made his eyebrow twitch in irritation just thinking about the reaction of his friend. I told you it was annoying and stupid. Akino, though, was focused on something else that was revealed. What is this about punishment, Naruto-kun? She hummed out. Rias rolled her eyes. You'd like to know that of all things, wouldn't you? But of course, Akino responded firmly. There might be the prospect of teaming up with him on that front. Rias and even Kaneko let out a shiver at the prospect of such a thing happening. They quickly banished that thought from their mind, as they would rather not think about what kind of things the two would get up to. Opposed to the two devils, Naruto showed mere curiosity on the matter of teaming up, sending Akino a thumbs up of agreement, which the latter delighted in getting that sort of response from him. His distaste for those nicknames was something his elders in the peerage loved to tease him with. Akino especially. Despite his embarrassment at the teasing, it had brought them closer. In fact, over the last 3 years Naruto's new family had become very tightly knit. While the Gremory clan had largely welcomed Naruto and considered him close since his arrival, by now he was truly regarded as family. While they had once considered him with pity for his circumstance, they now saw him as a boy who had worked hard to give as much help to the Gremory family, and Rias peerage especially, as he got in return. There was no denying the changes he had brought to the close-knit group, whether it was bringing Kaneko out of her shell if even only to a degree, sparring with Kiba to strengthen them both and work out some of their pent-up rage at their pasts, comforting Akino about her past once they had confided in each other. Even just keeping Rias' mind off her looming betrothal to a certain phoenix, he always went above and beyond for his new family. Although it had begun well with the mention of the other Naruto getting closer to them, the mention of their past and upcoming problems in Rias' case later brought the mood down from the previous fun one in the room quite quickly. The expression of the devils changed quickly to one that showed their displeasure at the mention of their pasts and problems. Naruto grimaced at the negative feelings he picked up coming from them. Looks like even the mention of those things brings out bad feelings in them. While he was curious about what exactly had happened in their pasts, and why Rias thought negatively about the betrothal, he understood now was not the right time to ask them about it. With that, he stayed silent and waited for Akino to continue reading. That being said, for as much as Naruto had become a true gentleman worthy of bearing the mark of the Gremory clan, he had a few glaring issues that placed undue stress on his king. That was of course his prankster nature, especially when used for punishing anyone he felt deserved it at Ko. At first it hadn't been so bad. A few jokes and the like here and there around the Gremory estate. She had even had a few laughs at her brother's expense thanks to Naruto. It was when he entered high school though, and he met a certain trio it seemed to kick his need for pranks into overdrive. Much like there were those with monikers at the top of the social food chain at Ko, there were those at the bottom as well. Specifically 4 of them, the perverted trio and their female counterpart the perverted witch. These 4 students somehow made it onto Naruto's list without even needing to encounter one another. What Rias and the others didn't know was that Naruto had maybe been diverting some of his frustration at his absentee godfather from his childhood into the most similar individuals he had encountered. That, and whether the boy could understand the emotions behind it or not, he definitely disliked the way they looked at his friends in the peerage, and their sister peerage under Sona Citri. Are they that bad? Naruto asked curiously. He had met his fair share of perverts, and he himself had his perverted moments in his life, so he was curious about this. Kaneko quickly went to answer. They're disgusting. Naruto had to hold back a chuckle at her miffed response. It was apparent to him that out of the 3 devils that she liked them the least. They're quite bad. I do not pay attention to them, but from the things I hear, they usually try to peep at the girls whenever they can and have also heard that in some cases, they have tried to take some clothes that belong to the girls, but that has never been proven. Akino said unsurely at the end as she wasn't sure how true that was since the people from Ko like to exaggerate everything a lot. Honestly, their nicknames are perfect for them and tell you enough about them. I can see why my other targets them. Rias sighed tiredly. No doubt Sona is gonna continue to keep complaining about this to me. It was this pranking tendency of the young blonde toward his perverse upperclassman that had led Rias to her daily annoyance, forwarded to her via her old friend Sona. More paperwork. She really needed to curb the boy's creativity with some of these things. The bill for fixing the East Wing's first-floor bathrooms was far closer to the price of a brand-new luxury car than could be reasonably explained. Then again, seeing the 3 screaming perverts following the prank had been worth it. Almost anyway. You know, maybe my other should have your clones do all that paperwork for me as a punishment. Rias hummed in interest, crossing her arms in thought. Naruto shook his head. I wouldn't do that if I was you. His remark got a confused expression from the redhead, obviously asking him to explain why. Knowing myself, if you do that, that will only make you his next target. I mean, he wouldn't, would he? Rias asked, unable to stop herself from gulping. Oh, if he is anything like me, and from what we've seen, he is, then yeah, he would. Akino giggled at her friend's expense. Maybe I should join him in giving out his punishments to you, Bucho? Rias balked at the idea and glared in good nature at her friend for even thinking that. It's not that bad, you said it was worth it seeing the screaming trio after the pranks, my other said almost. Rias corrected Naruto and Akino, who both gave her identical grins. That's good enough. It means my other is progressing. You both are crazy, Rias stated. Oh hell, he's corrupting me. Rias sighed out with an exasperated smile. See. Akino and Naruto said simultaneously. Alright, you two win, Rias admitted with slumped shoulders. Well, as long as I won't be the target, it's not bad. The Gremory girl smiled inwardly, identical to her other version on the screen. Corrupting you say? Why, Rias, you wouldn't happen to be having naughty thoughts about your cute little servant now, would you? A nearby Akino teased, causing the redhead to roll her eyes. I think I'll leave such debauchery to you, Akino. I will forever fear for my dear Naruto whenever you finally act on one of your horrifying fantasies. Well, him, Kiba, Kaneko, Gasper, Sona's peerage, and the majority of the school's population. You really should try and limit yourself a bit. The things you mumble in your sleep. Rias said with a false shiver at the end, getting a giggle from her closest friend. There is nothing to fear, Rias, Akino chirped. And I am not the only one who does things like that, and you should hear the things you mumble in your sleep. Ria's mouth opened up in surprise. What? What do you mean? She quickly asked, wondering if Akino was just teasing her or if she really did say things like Akino did in her sleep. Oh God, ow! The black-haired queen made a show of closing her mouth and making a zipping motion which only infuriated the redhead even more. My, you are really playful today, Rias. What's on your mind? The Ravenette asked as she plopped down on the edge of the desk to more comfortably chat with Rias. In response, she just smiled before sliding a page over to Akino. As the other girl read through the report, Rias couldn't keep her smug grin off her face as she watched Akino's eyes slowly grow wider. When she finally turned her purple eyes back to her king and friend, she stammered briefly before Rias lost it, and openly laughed at her friend's face. Yep, both in one try. I knew that they could do it. It's so exciting. Rias exclaimed with a smile. It's wonderful. Now with Kaneko and Kiba both mid-class like Naruto and I, the only one not promoted yet would be Gasper. Akino said. She was a bit stunned with how easily the knight and rook had passed the exam, but she knew they would in fact pass from the start. It just showed how much the peerage's extra training was paying off lately. Mid-class? Naruto's voice rose up in curiosity at the mention of it. It's a devil rank. Low is the lowest, with ultimate being the highest. Middle class comes after low, and high class comes after that. Rias explained shortly. Naruto hummed. Reminds me of our own systems with Genin and the other ranks a bit. So, what rank are you guys right now? He asked, interested. High class, middle class, Rias, Akino, and Kaneko answered in order. Looks like that's the same as in the story then. The Uzumaki noted. It was interesting to him to know that Rias was already nearly an ultimate class devil. Sadly, the joyous mood Rias had from learning of two of her peerage being promoted to mid-class dampened slightly at the mention of her troublesome bishop. All of her peerage members came with a selection of issues that affected them. All of them had suffered some form of abuse as a child, and all of them had also been nearly murdered by those abusers, or in Gasper and Kiba's case, successfully murdered by them. Thankfully, there remained a brief window of time following death that a devil could resurrect someone into their peerage. Some other high-class devils had taken to calling her peerage a band of rejects and misfits, which angered her more than her peerage for some reason. Gasper's past specifically had led to issues that kept him terrified of the world, only truly trusting Kaneko, which stung Rias's pride slightly, as she was the one who had rescued him. Not that that really mattered, but it did nag at her a bit. What worsened the situation was that Rias, for all intents and purposes, had a bleeding heart. She couldn't bring herself to force Gasper out when he both feared everything, and feared himself in interacting with everything. Ah, so that's the situation with your last family member? Naruto noted. It didn't sound good at all from what was read. Rias hung her head sadly. Yeah, I've tried to help him before, but it's been difficult so far. Naruto patted her back encouragingly. Don't give up. You managed to get everyone you have so far on your side so far, and they all look happy with you. Just give him time and I'm sure he will join you guys soon. While he couldn't help her with it as it was something she had to overcome herself since it was her duty as a king, he could still encourage her. Rias nodded sadly. It's easier said than done though. She thought grimly, but pushed the thought back for the moment. She will tackle that problem when the time came for it. Kaneko, seeing the state her king was in, moved a bit closer to her and wordlessly offered her one of her sweets. The king, seeing the gesture, had to hold back a smile at her rook's attempt at cheering her up as she accepted the offer gratefully with a ruffle of the younger girl's hair. Akino smiled sweetly at the interaction and hoped that soon, Gasper would be able to join them so that her best friend had one less thing to worry about in her life. Closing himself off had been intended as a temporary solution after all. The damper had an extremely powerful sacred gear, but due to his trauma and his fear of himself he lacked hardly any control in activating and deactivating his ability. The shivering mess the boy devolved into at the mere mention of social interaction was enough to cause Rias to lock up and worry over him herself. Seeing one of her peerage members in so much fear or pain hurt her nearly as much. A nudge from Akino, who watched her with a sad smile, brought Rias back to the present. There was no reason to dwell on that which couldn't be helped today after all. Worrying over something wouldn't suddenly fix it. I had Naruto send some clones to gather party supplies for when the others get back, Rias said as she turned back to her paperwork. The two girls were quiet for a while following that. Rias continued to work while Akino stared, first at her friend, then after a sigh, out the window to the well-kept school grounds. It really was a beautiful place to live. If she wanted, Akino knew both she and Rias could make their bodies remain at the age they looked now. Just old enough to be considered women, but young enough to also be considered girls. They might even do that, if it wasn't for the literal mountain of pressure weighing down her redhead friend's shoulders. Maybe a bit of good news could help alleviate that tension. Normally she would tell Naruto, and he would tell Rias, as the boy just had a sense of cheer about him that doubled the effect of good news and dampened the effect of the bad. Still, every bit could help, right? Before she left, Kaneko told me that she sensed the sacred gear among one of the perverted trio the other day. Smelled like smoke and lizards, so something to do with dragons. Akino spoke quietly. Dragons? Naruto raised an eyebrow. What's that? He asked, much to the devil's surprise. You really don't know what that is? Naruto deadpanned. If I did, I wouldn't be asking, you know. A dragon. Rias trailed off when, just like when Kurama was mentioned, a visual of a dragon appeared in front of them, showcasing quite a big one. That's a dragon there. Good timing, she said, not sure where to look to address the person who brought them here, leaving her to look through the whole room awkwardly. Naruto analyzed the creature in front of him. It certainly looked menacing and quite cool in his eyes. You know, it would be pretty cool to meet one. They don't like all that to me. Kurama wrote off the creature very quickly, not at all impressed by it. We don't even know what it can do yet. It would be nice to fight against one sometime to see how we fare against it, Naruto said in response to his friend. Looks like it's the same there as it is with us regarding one of the three boys, Akino pointed out. So you guys have been monitoring the one that has that smell in your world too? Yes, though, I'm still not so sure whether bringing him in would be a good idea or not, Rias added on. Rias stopped writing and stared at her work before glancing up at Akino with a faint amount of surprise on her face. Would it be worth it to have one of those boys in her peerage? They were annoying. As a devil, neither she nor Akino were really all that bothered by the boys' perverse natures. A great many devils were rather prolific sleazes. It came with the territory after all. That being said, the three boys took that nature to the extreme, to the point even she, a full-blooded devil woman, was annoyed and put off by their behavior. Oh, and that's not all, Akino said, this time with a coy grin on her face. Rias focused on her friend's face, shaking thoughts of the perverts from her mind for a moment. I sensed an overdeveloped reserve of magic from that Kiryu girl. The title perverted, which might be more on the nose than was intended. Akino's grin grew into her naturally enticing smirk, something that came with being born a fallen angel. Well, it seems Naruto will be busy doing what he does best over the next few weeks, Rias said with a chuckle as she turned back to her work. Putting the work on me again? Wow. Naruto feigned exasperation at the redhead girl, who smiled and decided to play along. Of course, you do your job so well. I have to make you do it, she responded cheekily, causing the blonde to mock pout. Fufu, Akino giggled, catching their attention. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, because since she knows you're her ninja, she'll be sure to give you a good reward in return for all your work, she finished with a wink. Akino! Rias had to shout out in embarrassment with red cheeks after her friend once again teased her for her fascination. Really, what kind of rewards? Naruto feigned innocence and asked the question, obviously playing along. Akino had to hold back her laughter and loved how Naruto played along with her teasing. Her friend's adorable red face was so worth it. Akino for her part smiled at faintly, cheering her king up at the thought of new peerage members. Stepping out of the room and back to the kitchenette they had installed for their clubroom earlier in the year, Akino fought back the giggle when thinking of Naruto's reaction to being ordered to stalk the likes of the perverted trio for the next few weeks. As much progress as he had made to be a more mature gentleman under the tutelage of Venelina herself, he still had rather childish pouting moments that Akino found all too cute. Enough thought on that for now. What cake should I make for that party Rias wants to throw? Oh, better than cake. Cupcakes, Akino thought as she began one of her favorite and surprisingly less lewd hobbies. Akino turned the page and blinked as she noticed that it was empty, causing her to frown for a second. It doesn't end here, does it? She asked herself, but thankfully, that came out to be false when she turned the page again and saw Chapter 2 written on it. Well, that was Chapter 1 done, she called out. Huh, already? Rias asked, a bit surprised. She hadn't realized that they had been done with the first chapter so quickly. Guess we were really into it, Naruto commented with a grin. He liked it a lot so far. Seeing another version of himself was quite an experience, and he wanted more of it. Come on, read further. I want to find out what happens next. What if Naruto has fox ears and 9 tails high school DxD? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.